LoveLore Library. Chapter 205. I know. Qin Huayuan was stunned for a moment before he turned around with a bitter smile. His Highness has been patient with Chao Guozhang for a long time. He doesn't dare to lose his temper normally, but today, he lost his temper. It seems that he is really angry. Third Elder Master nodded. Big Brother is right. Among the people who have been His Highness's Grand Tutor and Grand Tutor, Big Brother is the closest to His Highness. Now that Chao Guozhang wants to take advantage of the situation and push the Ministry of Revenue's deficit to Big Brother and Second Elder Brother, His Highness will naturally stand up for Big Brother. That's right. His Highness is frank and upright. He is also very accomplished in calligraphy and painting. He is an outstanding talent. It's a pity that he was born in the wrong time. Qin Huayuan's smile faded and turned into a sigh. If it were a time of peace and prosperity, with 2 or 3 loyal officials by his side, His Highness would be able to defend the achievements. However, Dian is in turmoil right now, and the people have no way to make a living. There is no chance for His Highness to display his talents. Second Elder Master also said, to say something disrespectful, if His Majesty abdicates the throne to His Highness, kills the Demon Empress and the Chao clan, and orders Big Brother to assist His Highness, Guozhang might still have a chance to survive. With Father's wisdom, we can defend a city with our 350,000 soldiers. The Tiger Army only has 100,000 soldiers. They really can't do anything to us. Dian might not necessarily lose. It's a pity that His Majesty trusted the treacherous officials and hoped that the Titan would come from afar to help. Now, the Commander-in-Chief's seal is still empty. Without a leader, how can we fight the Tiger Army? The more Qin Yining spoke, the angrier he became. He wished he could grab the fatuous ruler and slap him a few dozen times to see if he could wake him up. She, the young woman, was already like this. What about Qin Huayuan, who had been an official for decades? A fatuous ruler like him had let down her father's talent and loyalty. Forget it. His Highness should have vented his anger by now. I'll go outside and take a look. Qin Huayuan brushed his sleeves and went out of Xi Shao Garden toward the front courtyard. Only then did old Madame react. Could it be that Meng Gu purposely talked for a while and went later? Second Elder Master smiled and said, Eldest brother thinks that the Crown Prince has been suppressed for too long. If he goes out early, the Crown Prince will be wronged. It's better to let him be. In any case, Chao Guozhang won't do anything to the Crown Prince. However, even if His Highness the Crown Prince is not favored, he is still a prince and the son of the Emperor. Minister of State Chao is only an official, yet he dares to quarrel with a prince. He is too arrogant and presumptuous. In the end, Second Old Master only sneered. Everyone also felt that Chao Guozhang was arrogant. But now, other than talking behind his back, they couldn't find a way to suppress him. This can't go on. Qin Yining said faintly, since Mr. Chao can bring people here to slander us today, he might bring people here tomorrow to seize our house and plant evidence of his crime. We still have to be careful in our family. I think Minister of State Chao wants to take advantage of the time when the Emperor is relying on the Titan to weaken our family. Now that Father is forced to take over the government, I think that only His Highness the Crown Prince has a sense of justice. The others can't even protect themselves. Who would dare to speak up for Father and defend Minister of State Chao? If this matter continues to develop like this basin of dirty water will fall on our family sooner or later. Yes. Qin Yining couldn't help but pace back and forth with worry. The more he thought about it, the more afraid he became. Chao Guozhang was now in control of authority and had the support of the Emperor and the Demon Empress. It could be said that he didn't lack the authority to act or speak. If Chao Guozhang was a little more vicious and spouted some nonsense in the imperial court, wouldn't Chao Guozhang's father be at home? Wouldn't Chao Guozhang have no choice but to allow others to put dirty water on his head and not even be able to open his mouth to refute? Sister Yi is right. What should we do? The members of the Sun clan were also a bit anxious. Now that a storm was coming, all the family members were gathered together. Qin Huaiyuan and his brothers no longer avoided the womenfolk when discussing matters of state. Thus, the womenfolk had never experienced the intrigue in the imperial court before. They also understood that it wasn't easy for the men outside. Although everyone was afraid, they were desperately trying to think of a solution. Qin Huaining, who had been silent all this time, raised his head and looked at Qin Yining hesitantly. Fourth young lady, you are familiar with His Highness the Crown Prince. I think that for father's sake, you should be more active with His Highness the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince is still the Crown Prince. Perhaps he is willing to do his best for father and can be useful. Seeing that everyone was looking at her, Qin Huaining blushed and hurriedly explained, I am just worried about father and want to help. I don't have any other intentions. The idea is also nonsense. At first, Qin Yining suspected that Qin Huaining was trying to stir up trouble at this time. But this time, Qin Yining only saw fear on Qin Huaining's face. She didn't feel any malice from her. Qin Yining was a person who was especially sensitive to other people's gazes and malice. It could be said that this was her innate survival instinct. Now, facing Qin Huaining who didn't have any malice, she only nodded and calmly said, I will consider it. Qin Huaining heard this and clearly sighed in relief. Now that the world was in chaos, she had to continue living in the family Qin to ensure her own safety. Qin Yining's current position was unshakable. Whether it was the family Qin's hearts or morals, everything leaned towards Qin Yining. Even if she was unwilling in her heart, she wouldn't be foolish enough to continue striking a stone with an egg and seeking her own death. What she needed to do now was to curry favor with Qin Yining, the steward's miss, just like how she used to curry favor with old Madam and the Sun clan. Qin Huaining revealed a timid smile to Qin Yining. Qin Yining looked away and no longer paid any attention to Qin Huaining. She kept analyzing the current situation in her mind. As for the Crown Prince, I feel that it's not a big deal if we don't beg him. After a while, Qin Yining said, the Crown Prince will definitely stand up and speak for father. Just like now, His Highness the Crown Prince has already opposed Guozhang Chao without our request. It's just that the Crown Prince's ability is limited, and his words don't carry enough weight. This matter can't be resolved just by pleading with His Majesty. We need to take drastic measures. Second Master also nodded, I also think so. With His Highness the Crown Prince's character, he won't sit idly by and do nothing about our family's matters. It's just that he has the will but not the ability. At this time, Qin Huaining's face had already turned red, and even the tips of her ears had turned red. She had come up with this idea because she wanted to show off in front of her family and salvage her image. She hadn't expected that her idea would turn out to be the last resort. When sixth young miss saw Qin Huaining's reaction, she pulled on her hand and shook it. Qin Huaining's face turned purple, and she gave sixth young miss a smile that was uglier than crying. Qin Yining didn't pay attention to Qin Huaining and sixth young miss's expressions. Instead, she was lost in thought as she fiddled with the red bean bracelet on her wrist. This was a habit she had developed recently. Whenever she was lost in thought, she couldn't help but fiddle with the bracelet. Second Master and Third Master also frowned. What exactly should we do? Take drastic measures. Qin Han said, if we want to take drastic measures, we naturally have to completely clear eldest uncle's name. We have to prove that he's innocent. Qin Yu also nodded, that's right. Eldest uncle has been honest for so many years, so he really shouldn't be the scapegoat. The Ministry of Revenue's money was loaned out, and it wasn't our family's doing. With so many pairs of eyes watching, how could they possibly renege on their debt? If there's a debt, there's no need to worry about it. We can definitely settle it clearly. Eldest young mistress, you said. Although that's true, how exactly do we prove eldest uncle's innocence? Everyone fell silent again. The Dowager Duchess leaned against a large pillow and watched her children and grandchildren work together to solve this difficult problem. She was so moved that tears almost fell from her eyes. In the past, when she was in charge of the inner residence, she sometimes felt that each branch of the family had their own ideas and was like a plate of loose sand. She didn't expect that the family Qin people would be so united in the face of difficulties. Thinking back carefully, all of this seemed to have started when Qin Huayuan was sent to the Ministry of Justice's prison and when Qin Yining acted as the family's representative. It seemed that this granddaughter of hers was very formidable. It was fortunate that she was in the family at that time. The Dowager Duchess smiled as she looked at Qin Yining and asked, "Sister Yi, what do you think?" Qin Yining didn't expect that the Dowager Duchess would mention her name. However, seeing her benevolent expression, as if there had never been any discord between them, Qin Yining was happy to get closer to the Dowager Duchess. She spoke the truth. I think that it's possible to prove father's innocence, but when the time comes, there will be a lot of wrangling, and the difficulty won't be small. In fact, I've been thinking about what a real drastic measure is. Qin Han looked at Qin Yining, fourth sister, what do you think is a drastic measure? Qin Yining smiled and softly said, the drastic measures that I can think of all involve bloodshed. It's better not to say it out loud. Her voice was very pleasant to hear and her smile was also very lively. However, when she said the words bloodshed, in that indifferent tone, for some reason, made people feel a chill run down their backs. Second Master frowned and said, Sister Yi, you mean, there are some words that just need to be understood. Why should I say it out loud? If they wanted to protect Qin Huayuan, the only way to take drastic measures was to let all the bad people who wanted to harm him meet the King of Hell. After Qin Han pondered deeply, he was so frightened that he sucked in a breath of cold air. Sixth young miss, seventh young miss, and Qin Huaining also understood, and their faces turned deathly pale. The crown prince of the Sun clan even put his arm around Qin Yining's shoulder and lightly patted her cheek. As a girl, you shouldn't talk about fighting and killing every time you open your mouth. Don't be so murderous. After sending off the crown prince, Qin Huayuan returned to the veranda and happened to hear Qin Yining's words. He waved his hand to stop Ru Yi from passing on the message and stopped in the veranda, not immediately coming in. Qin Yining smiled, I'm just saying. In my opinion, proving my father's innocence will also require a lot of effort. Since it's going to take a lot of effort, it's better to do it cleanly and avoid endless troubles in the future. It's easy to say, but do you know how hard it is to actually do it? That's a big tree that many people can't shake even if they join hands. Sister Yi, you must not do this again in the future, Second Master lectured in a deep voice. Qin Yining smiled and nodded, no longer arguing. However, in her mind, the murderous intent surged again. Was it really impossible to kill? Was it really impossible to kill? Chapter 206. In the following days, the family Qin's life was completely disrupted by Chao Guozhang. Almost every day, Chao Guozhang sent people to meet with Qin Huayuan. At first, it was to be sarcastic and offensive. Later, Chao Guozhang personally led people to search the family Qin for so-called evidence. Not to mention the courtyards that had already been locked down, even the old Madame Ci Shao garden was turned upside down. The so-called search was not a serious investigation. It was a deliberate attempt to destroy the family Qin's things. The things in the bookshelves and cabinets were all turned over and thrown on the ground. Even the Shuoran study where the girls lived was not spared. Not to mention the books on the bookshelves and the decorations in the multi-treasure pavilion, even the winter clothes in the chests and baskets were turned over. The entire residence was in a mess, as if it had been robbed by bandits. Second Old Master's official position in the Ministry of Rights had also been pointed out by Chao Guozhang. He had insinuated that Second Old Master was in cahoots with Qin Huaiyuan and had embezzled money from the Ministry of Revenue. The emperor was already in a fit of anger, so he didn't even ask for proof before he reprimanded Second Old Master. Today, other than Qin Huaiyuan, who still retained his title of nobility, the rest of the family Qin had no voice in the court. Whatever Chao Guozhang said in court was the truth. The family Qin did not even have a chance to refute. Qin Yining was already having a hard time in the summer. Because of the recent events, he was full of anger. He was so angry that he could not eat for 2 consecutive days. Not to mention Qin Yining, who was young and strong, the old madam had already fallen ill from anger. She only recovered after taking medicine for a few days. Qin Huaiyuan had never suffered such a loss in his life. As a man, if he couldn't even leave this piece of pure land for his family, how could he have the face to drag out an ignoble existence? Therefore, Qin Huaiyuan, who was extremely angry, had no other choice but to send letters to the emperor to plead his case. However, the emperor's reply was, Chao Guozhang is investigating the direction of the Ministry of Revenue's money and the embezzlement case under Zhen's orders. My beloved official should still consider the overall situation and cooperate. Cooperate. If they continued to cooperate, the family Qin would be swallowed whole by the Chao family. How could Qin Huaiyuan be willing to suffer such a loss? Chao Guozhang kept harassing the family Qin, so the Qin Huaiyuan kept sending him memorials. When he was negotiating peace in Xihua City, every day the emperor would send dozens of oral orders to urge him to hurry up. He was now in the imperial city of the capital. Could it be that he could not learn from the emperor? Therefore, Qin Huaiyuan's memorials were sent to the palace almost twice a day. If one day Chao Guozhang came to make a big fuss, he would send him 3 or 4 more times. Perhaps Qin Huaiyuan's sincerity moved the emperor, or perhaps the emperor finally couldn't stand the disturbance anymore. That day, the emperor arranged for Chief Steward Wang to personally come to the Qin manor to pass on an oral order. In the summer afternoon, the sun was particularly hot. The stone bricks in the front yard of the Qin manor were a bit hot when kneeling. The heat penetrated the thin summer material and invaded the skin, causing Qin Yining and the womenfolk to frown. Qin Yining knelt in the back and worriedly raised her eyes to look at Qin Huaiyuan, who was kneeling at the front. In her mind, there was a scene that was very similar to what was happening now. It was in the Sun family of the Duke Dinggua's mansion. She and Qin Huaiyuan had followed their mother to kneel among the womenfolk of the Sun family. They watched Chief Steward Wang from the palace pass down an edict for Sun Yu's brain. Then there was Sun Yu's tragic collision. The scene of red and white splashing and 10,000 peach blossoms blooming would probably be unforgettable for the rest of their lives. The tragedy of the Sun family also began from that day. The person who came to pass on the edict today was still Chief Steward Wang. Their family was still like the Sun family that day. They were as powerless as fish on a chopping board waiting to be killed. Qin Yining felt the Sun family beside her tremble. She understood that this scene also made her mother think of the Sun family. Qin Yining supported the Sun family and squeezed her hand comfortingly. Feeling the warmth of their daughter's body, the Sun family finally felt a bit more at ease. Chief Steward Wang flung his horsetail whisk and said with a smile, "Marquis of Anping, I came today to pass on the Emperor's verbal edict. The Emperor ordered me to tell the Marquis of Anping word for word, so the Marquis of Anping must listen carefully." "Yes. Thank you for your trouble, Gong Gong." Qin Huaiyuan bowed solemnly. Chief Steward Wang's sharp voice imitated the Emperor's tone to 80%. "We saw that you had done your job well in the past, so we didn't blame you in advance. Who would have thought that you would only ask others to prioritize state affairs, but when it was your turn, you weren't even willing to cooperate with the investigation. Could it be that you really did embezzle the Ministry of Revenue's money? Are you feeling guilty now? Not only have you failed to live up to our trust in you, you've also led our only crown prince astray. The former crown prince's crown prince was well-educated and reasonable, gentle and refined. Now, he dares to yell in front of us that he doesn't distinguish between the young and the old. Your actions truly disappoint us. How can you still have the face to report to us about the state's father-in-law? The family Qin's people all knelt on the ground and bowed. Their foreheads were pressed against the tiles as they listened to Chief Steward Wang's words without missing a single word. The courtyard was completely silent. These heart-wrenching words were like invisible blades that had already pierced through people's hearts. Qin Yining raised his head and quietly looked at Qin Huaiyuan's back. His originally tall and straight figure had now collapsed, as if he couldn't bear the heavy weight on his body and was finally unable to hold on. After a while, Qin Huaiyuan said in a hoarse voice, "Many thanks, Wang Gonggong. Please convey this official's intentions." This official's family thanks the emperor for his teachings. Chief Steward Wang sighed and said, "Marquis of Anping, don't be too stubborn. If you can't handle it, then take a step back. Don't forget the previous example. Look at what happened to the grandson of Duke Ding. You're a talented person. There's no need to compete with others at this time." Chief Steward Wang had served the emperor for many years. Although he wasn't good at other things, his ability to observe people's expressions was great. The conflict between the emperor and Qin Huaiyuan had been stirred up by the Chao family, but he couldn't do anything about it. Chief Steward Wang still had a conscience. He also admired Qin Huaiyuan's conduct, so he gave him a reminder. Qin Huaiyuan was naturally grateful. He personally saw Chief Steward Wang out and even gave him a first-class red envelope. The womenfolk supported each other as they staggered to their feet. The old madam's face was already covered in tears. "They've gone too far, they've gone too far. Aren't they bullying us because there's no one left in our family? Could it be that the heavens want to destroy our family Qin?" The Sun clan thought of the tragic state of the Sun family that day. Then, they thought of Qin Huaiyuan stooped back after being scolded. Their hearts ached, and tears streamed down their faces. Everyone returned to Xiaishao Garden. Everyone was like a frosted eggplant. Some had a worried expression, and some silently cried. Not long after, Qin Huaiyuan returned with second old master and third old master. Only then did the sobbing in the room gradually die down. Qin Huaiyuan wasn't like before when he still wanted to bring people to discuss this matter. Instead, he calmly paid his respects to the old madam and comforted her with a few words. Then, he said that he was tired and wanted to take a nap. The old madam naturally didn't refuse and dismissed everyone. Qin Yining, Bing Tang, and Ji Yun left Xiaishao Garden. As they walked, they suddenly stopped. "Tell me, in this situation, who else can help my father?" Chapter 207. When Ji Yun saw that her master's family had been bullied by people like Chao Guozhang, she almost wanted to kill him. When she heard Qin Yining's question, her eyes lit up with excitement. She whispered, "Young lady, as long as you say the word, I will make a move tonight. I will definitely kill that old thing." Qin Yining didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She said, "Assassination." "Yes, assassination." Ji Yun gritted her teeth. For this kind of scourge, how many more lives can be saved if he dies a day earlier? That's not appropriate. Qin Yining shook her head and said, "Let's not talk about how many guards Chao Guozhang has around him. You might not be able to succeed and might even lose your life. Let's talk about what happens after you kill him." Ji Yun was stunned by Qin Yining's question and shook her head. "Killing him is not the end of the matter. The demon empress is still around, the incapable ruler is still around, and the descendants of the Chao family are still around. There might be a successor of Chao Guozhong among them. What if the successor of Chao Guozhong is even worse than him? At the very least, I already have a good understanding of this Chao Guozhong. If I were to face a new opponent, I would have to spend time to get to know him better. In that case, I might as well think of a way to wipe them all out, don't you think? Ji Yun nodded in agreement and followed Qin Yining for a few steps. She suddenly stopped and said, "Young lady, you said to take drastic measures earlier, and now you say to wipe them all out. Could it be that you want to wipe out the entire Chao family?" Qin Yining didn't deny it. In fact, she didn't only want to wipe out the Chao family, but also the demon empress and the incapable ruler. Although to her, as a citizen of the Dian dynasty, wanting to kill the incapable ruler was treason, the incapable ruler was tyrannical. Not to mention the common people suffering, even her father was trampled into the dust and couldn't turn over a new leaf. Qin Yining couldn't help but laugh. Her thoughts now were probably in line with her grandmother and the people of the Qin Tian alliance. On the other hand, Qin Yining's calm demeanor made it seem as if all they were discussing was what dishes to eat and what flowers to embroider. The Chao family was very powerful, and the relationships in the imperial court were very complicated. Even Qin Huaiyuan was suppressed. Qin Yining was still an unmarried girl. Ji Yun really couldn't think of any way to deal with Qin Yining. But for some reason, even though she didn't know what Qin Yining was going to do, Ji Yun still felt that as long as Qin Yining said it, it would definitely be done. There aren't many good people in the Chao family. What should be destroyed must be destroyed. If only little Wang Yi was here. It wouldn't be a problem for him to bring his troops and flatten their house. Bing Tang nodded as he listened. That's right. If little Wang Yi were here, would he allow the Chao family to be so impudent? He would have slapped them long ago. Even the dog emperor was like a mouse seeing a cat when he saw little Wang Yi. How could the Chao family be more important than the emperor? Qin Yining gently squeezed Ji Yun's and Bing Tang's hands. Don't say such things in the future. The situation is getting more and more tense, so we can't let our guard down. Yes. Bing Tang and Ji Yun both realized that what they said just now might bring trouble to Qin Yining, so they kept quiet. Qin Yining said in a low voice, "Although it's true that a strong person can defeat 10 skilled people, we still have to live our lives. There's no need to hurt the jade bottle just to beat the mouse. Sometimes, it's not hard to use your brain to solve problems. That's because the young lady is smart enough." Bing Tang said in a low voice, "Don't tell me you think that anyone can do that." Qin Yining burst out laughing. He thought for a moment and said, "Tell them to prepare the carriage. We're going to Prince Ning's residence." Prince Ning's residence? Bing Tang asked in surprise. The young lady and Prince Ning have only met once before. Are you going to help the Marquis ask for help? Yes. Although we've only met once, we have to think of a way to try. Qin Yining said, after thinking about it, other than Prince Ning, there's no need to consider anyone else who has a sense of justice, is willing to worry about the rise and fall of this country, and has enough weight to speak in front of the emperor. Although that's the case, Prince Ning is not a simple person. How can the young lady persuade him with just a few words? Bing Tang knew Prince Ning very well. Qin Yining smiled and shook his head. He said, "I can't be sure of anything, but the only thing we can do now is to ask Prince Ning for help. My father has been suppressed to the point that he doesn't even have a chance to talk back. We need someone to speak for my father in the imperial court. Even if they can't persuade the emperor to change his mind, at least they can't let the Chao family say whatever they want to confuse the emperor's judgment. Prince Ning is a hot-blooded man. Although he has some small problems, he's upright and knows how to repay kindness. He's someone who can be entrusted with this matter." Ji-yoon thought for a moment and asked, "Young lady, do you want to send an invitation first and arrange a time to visit him tomorrow? As for the Marquis, don't you want to discuss it with him?" Chin Yining waved his hand and said, "If I send an invitation, I probably won't be able to see Prince Ning. Prince Ning is so slippery. He's afraid of getting into trouble and will only refuse to see our family Chin. If I suddenly go there, I might have a chance. I won't discuss it with my father for the time being. If I don't do my job well, it has nothing to do with my family. It's something I did on my own. If my father finds out, it will be troublesome. Once something goes wrong, it won't be that simple." Bing Tang and Ji-yoon laughed when they heard this. "I knew that this lady's brain isn't simple. She's actually so thoughtful. You two are so talkative." Chin Yining chuckled. Chin Yining left with Bing Tang and Ji-yoon in a car. After thinking for a while, he didn't go straight to the prince's residence. Instead, he called for Master Zhong. Master Zhong was very experienced and had a wide network of connections. With him around, Chin Yining would have one more person to discuss the matter with. On the carriage, the four of them had already analyzed the possible reactions that Ning Wang would have in a low voice. Chin Yining also thought of several excuses to ask Prince Ning for help. He even decided that if it really didn't work out, he would use the trick of injuring himself to gain Prince Ning's favor no matter what. The carriage kept moving forward, getting closer and closer to Prince Ning's mansion. Chin Yining lifted the curtains and looked outside. He saw that the back garden and side alley of Prince Ning's mansion were not far away. Strangely, there were two figures gathered at the corner gate of Prince Ning's mansion's back garden. It was a young man and woman. The man was wearing an ordinary cotton robe. He was about 25 or 26 years old and was very thin. Because they were too far away, Chin Yining couldn't see his face clearly. However, from his temperament, he could feel that this person was somewhat dispirited and stooped. The woman beside him was about 21 or 22 years old. She was wearing a light green robe that only female officials in Prince Ning's mansion wore. Her outer robe was pink and pinched her teeth to match her armor. As the woman and the man talked, they hugged each other. First, they hugged, then kissed. Then, they whispered a few words to each other. Chin Yining saw the woman take out a cloth bundle from her bosom. She weighed the bundle and gave it to the man. At this time, the carriage was slowly approaching. If it went any further, they would be alerted. Chin Yining quietly ordered the coachman to stop the carriage. The man stuffed the bundle into his bosom. Then, he hugged the woman and kissed her. Only then did he leave in a fluster. The woman carefully checked to see if there was anyone else nearby. After confirming that she was safe, she went through the corner gate. Chin Yining narrowed his eyes and said, "Head shopkeeper, I'll have to trouble you to help me find out what that maidservant and that man do and what their relationship is." Master Zhong nodded. "That won't be difficult. We know people here. We'll know once we ask." Chapter 208. Chin Yining's carriage stopped in the hidden alley behind Prince Ning's residence. Master Zhong alighted and went to find someone to use his connections to inquire about the matter just now. Chin Yining, Bing Tang, and Ji-yoon stayed in the carriage to wait. Bing Tang asked in a low voice, "Miss, why aren't we going in? Prince Ning should be in the residence right now. Is Miss worried that Prince Ning won't agree?" "That's right. Let's not talk about anything else. If I were Prince Ning, I wouldn't let myself be involved in such a troublesome matter for no reason. The court is currently in chaos. Prince Ning has led the army before. The emperor is also suspicious. It's hard to guarantee that people won't suspect anything even if we don't do anything, let alone casually choosing a side. This is the biggest taboo. Qin Yining lowered her long eyelashes. Her right hand's fingers rubbed the red bean bracelet on her slender left wrist. She said faintly, "Actually, I just don't want to let go of any leads. I'll have to trouble Master Zhong to investigate and see if there's an opportunity. If there isn't, I'll have to brace myself and ask for it." "Miss, what you're doing is right," Ji Yun said in admiration. "Only by not letting go of any clues can one grasp all the opportunities. Wang Yi has always done things like this. No wonder Wang Yi would place Miss at the top of his heart and dote on you so much. It turns out that their temperaments are compatible." Qin Yining's cheeks flushed red. She said angrily, "What are you saying? Why are you talking about him when we're being serious?" Ji Yun saw Qin Yining's face and ears turning red. She couldn't help but tease, "That's strange. This servant didn't say anything improper. I just mentioned Wang Yi. Or are you thinking of something indecent?" When Qin Yining heard this, she felt her head explode. Her face was so red that it was about to drip blood. She rolled her eyes at Ji Yun and looked away. She wouldn't say another word even if she was beaten to death. Ji Yun and Bing Tang looked at each other and could not help but laugh. It seemed that the relationship between Wang Yi and Miss was not affected by the dispute between the two countries. Instead, it was gradually improving. It was no wonder that Wang Yi was so attentive to her. Even when they were just talking, he did not forget to prepare some beef in advance for her. Firstly, a man was willing to cook for a woman. This in itself was extremely touching. Secondly, regardless of whether it was in Dezhou or Dian, even if one was a noble, it was not easy to eat beef. Cows were labor, and killing them was a big crime. Wang Yi was able to get a piece of beef shank to cook noodles for the young lady in Dian when there was a famine. It could be seen that he had put a lot of thought into this young lady. Even the servants who were watching from the side felt touched for the young lady, let alone the person in question, Qin Yining. The two maidservants were afraid that Qin Yining would not be able to get over it, so they only joked in their hearts and did not dare to say another word. Qin Yining leaned against the wall of the carriage and looked through the screen to see a small blade of grass outside. The weather was hot. Fortunately, they were parked under the shade of a tree, which could relieve some of the stuffy heat. However, even so, Qin Yining was sweating profusely and kept fanning himself. After waiting for 2 hours, Master Zhong returned with a head full of sweat. "Boss." Master Zhong boarded the carriage. Ji Yun and Bing Tang consciously got off the carriage. They handed water and a handkerchief to Master Zhong before walking away with the coachman. Qin Yining looked at Master Zhong's sweat-soaked collar and hair and said apologetically, "It's such a hot day. It must have been hard for head shopkeeper to make this trip." "It doesn't matter. It's not a big deal." Master Zhong waved his hand and said with a smile, "Fortunately, I didn't fail my mission. This old man really did find out some information. This person is called Li Wenhan. He became a Xiuzai at the age of 14 and is now 28 years old. He hasn't made any progress in his official career. Because he made careless friends, he got into the bad habit of gambling. He often gambles outside and owes a lot of money. Boss, guess what the woman who was with him just now gave him?" Qin Yining said, "That woman is close to him. What she gave him is naturally something that can repay his debt. No matter how bad the prince's mansion is, she can just give him a few melons or 2 dates, enough for Li Wenhan to squander outside." Boss's guess is correct. I also found out about that woman just now. She is Princess Ning's most capable chief palace maid. Her name is Rose. She has known Li Wenhan for 4 years and privately agreed to marry him. Li Wenhan has always been able to repay the debts he owes from gambling outside in times of crisis. It must be all thanks to Rose. Since Rose serves Princess Ning, she must have had the opportunity to come into contact with some gold, silver, jewelry, and other things that Princess Ning doesn't often care about. I ordered people to follow Li Wenhan and found that he went to a pawn shop to pawn jewelry. I also found someone to get in touch with the pawn shop and learned that Li Wenhan used to pawn his things in that pawn shop. Qin Yining nodded when he heard this, and his eyes showed that he was deep in thought. Master Zhong didn't disturb him. He picked up the herbal tea and drank another bowl. Then he picked up the palm leaf fan on the carriage and fanned himself. Qin Yining waved the silk fan in her hand from time to time. After a while, Qin Yining smiled and asked shopkeeper Zhong, "Do you know what business Prince Ning and the Chao family have in the city?" Master Zhong asked in surprise, "Boss, why do you ask this?" "Both Prince Ning and the Chao family have a lot of business. If boss wants to know in detail, you have to organize it carefully." Qin Yining twirled the red bean bracelet in his fingers and said in a low voice, "Go investigate and see if there is any intersection between their businesses." "Boss, you want to find an opportunity to sow discord between their businesses?" Master Zhong asked with uncertainty. "Yes." Qin Yining nodded. "That's not very feasible." Master Zhong said sincerely, "Boss, there is an unwritten rule between all the noble families that do business in the city. If there is some small friction between the shops, it is between the servants. The masters won't get involved. Even if we go overboard, I'm afraid we won't be able to attract Prince Ning's attention." Qin Yining shook his head and said with a smile, "That's not entirely true. Right now, there are two important things. First, let the Chao family become arrogant and ruthlessly bully Prince Ning's businesses. It shouldn't be difficult to sow discord. Second, head shopkeeper, secretly contact Rose." As Qin Yining spoke, he lowered his voice even further and whispered a few words into Master Zhong's ear. Master Zhong's eyes widened as he listened. It was as if he couldn't believe it and was also as if he was scared. After a while, he said, "Boss, isn't this too risky? Rose has served the princess consort for a long time. If this matter is exposed, the consequences will be unthinkable. It doesn't matter. She wants to be loyal, but she hopes more that she and the one surnamed Li can survive. There is solid evidence at the pawn shop." Master Zhong thought about it carefully and found that this was indeed the case. "All right, then we'll do as boss says. I'll do it now. Boss, you can go home and wait for the news." Qin Yining smiled gratefully, "Thank you for your trouble, head shopkeeper. Don't mention it." Master Zhong got off the carriage and went to do the proper business with a slightly excited expression. Qin Yining called for Ji Yun and Bing Tang. The three of them returned to the Marquis Fu. Chapter 209. 10 days later. Prince Ning's mansion. Prince Ning looked at the pale-faced princess consort on the bed and frowned worriedly. "Princess consort, are you feeling better?" "Wang Yi, don't worry. I feel okay." Princess consort Ning's forehead was full of cold sweat. She covered her stomach with both hands and felt her intestines churning again. Her face changed. "I can't. I have to go to the toilet." Then she got off the bed in a panic. Rose, Bai Wei, and Ziwei, the three personal maids, hurriedly helped Princess Consort Ning to the bathroom at the back. Prince Ning's face was livid with anger. He punched hard on the Polonia wooden table. "She's too arrogant. Rose, come and tell this king what happened today." Rose, who was in the bathroom, trembled and forced herself to calm down. She went to the bedroom and knelt down. She kowtowed and said, "Wang Yi, don't be angry." Prince Ning sat on the round back chair and punched the table. "Tell me." "Yes. Today, I went to the palace with Princess Consort to greet Her Majesty as usual. Her Majesty said that her new almond tea was good and wanted to give Princess Consort a bowl. Princess Consort didn't dare to refuse and ate it in front of her. Then she had a stomachache on the way back. Rose's palms were sweating and her face was pale. She forced herself to calm down. Calm down. Because if she failed this time, not only her, but also Li Wenhan's life would be lost. Prince Ning didn't doubt it at all. He grabbed the teapot on the table and threw it on the ground. The sharp sound of broken porcelain was particularly harsh. The servants in the room knelt down and kowtowed. Wang Yi, don't be angry. What a good empress. What a good Chao family. Aren't you looking down on me too much? Prince Ning got up and walked around in anger. He scolded, it's just a small business conflict. This king was trampled on by that old man. That bitch Chao dared to take the opportunity to hurt this king's princess consort. Does she think this king is dead? At this moment, Wang Fei held the palace maid's hand and walked out with a hunched back and shaking legs. Rose, who was kneeling on the ground, saw that Wang Yi had no intention of taking his anger out on her or suspecting her. She hurriedly got up to help Wang Fei lie back down. The princess consort's face had already turned green, and she was extremely weak. It had only been 4 hours since she had left the palace, but she had run around at least 10 times. No one would be able to endure such torment. Wang Fei had always been pampered and her body had always been very healthy. She rarely suffered from illness and naturally could not endure such great suffering. This sudden torment caused her face to turn green. She started to sob in grievance. Wang Yi, calm down. Don't get into a conflict with the empress because of this concubine. This concubine's grievance is nothing. How is it nothing? You are this king's princess consort. If the empress treats you like this, where does this king stand? Where is our Prince Ning's mansion? Irritated, Prince Ning put his hands on his waist and gasped for air, trying hard to hold back his anger. The Chao family has been domineering and arrogant for a long time. That Qin Meng is such an amazing person. That Chao family has almost treated his home as his own backyard. If he wants to break into someone's backyard, he will break into their backyard. If he wants to ransack someone's closet, he will ransack someone's closet. Chao family has taken advantage of Qin Meng's home, but if he thinks that this king is also a soft persimmon, then he is wrong. He turned around and angrily glared at the eunuch at the door. Where is the imperial physician? Why hasn't the imperial physician come yet? The eunuch trembled from the roar and said with a sad face, replying to Wang Yi, this servant has already gone to invite the imperial physician. But Chao family said that he has not been feeling well for the past 2 days. All the imperial physicians on duty have been invited to his home by Chao family. This servant still needs to find an imperial physician who is not on duty. When Ning Wang heard this, he was so angry that he kicked over a chair. Chao, I'll fuck your grandmother. The palace servants in the room were so scared that they did not dare to breathe. They all knelt down and curled up into a ball. The princess consort's expression changed and she trembled as she stood up. No, I still need to go. Seeing that the princess consort was being helped to the washroom, Prince Ning was so angry that his hair stood up. Without an imperial physician, you call a physician. Are you all dead? Do you still need this king to teach you this? What about the heir? What about the others? Their mother is sick, but they don't know how to take care of her. What kind of rules are these? Yes, this servant will go now. Wang Yi was so angry that the palace maids and eunuchs were so scared that they ran around like headless flies to call for help. Prince Ning had 3 sons and 1 daughter. His eldest son had been given to the emperor for adoption, but when the emperor had a crown prince, he had been sent back. Therefore, the heir's status was very awkward. However, the heir was still the princess consort's biological son. Now that the princess consort was sick, the heir was very worried. When he heard the news, he quickly called for the princess consort to come over. Second master, third master, and the unmarried Princess Jalan also rushed over. They were all in front of the princess consort's bed, caring for her well-being. Prince Ning's face was gloomy as he sat in the outer room, sulking. Not long after, the physician also came. After taking the princess consort's pulse, he was completely clueless. He was so scared that his face turned pale as he kowtowed to Wang Yi. The princess consort is most likely suffering from an acute illness. This old man has never seen this kind of illness before, so I don't dare to rashly prescribe a prescription. Wang Yi, you should hurry and call for an imperial physician with better medical skills. Acute illness. Acute illness, your grandmother. Prince Ning was so angry that he almost sent the physician flying with a kick. The princess consort was drugged. The physician was so scared that his face turned pale. His beard trembled as he said, Wang Yi, please calm down. This old man has never seen such a fierce medicine. What he meant was that he didn't know how to treat it, nor did he dare to treat it. He asked Wang Yi to find someone better. Although Prince Ning was dissolute and had a reputation for being tyrannical and lecherous, he still treated the princess consort with respect. At least the princess consort's position had been unshakable for many years. What's more, the princess consort was his woman. If anyone dared to bully the princess consort, it was clearly not taking him seriously. Today, the empress dared to find a chance to drug the princess consort when she entered the palace. Prince Ning's temper had reached its limit. What's more, the physician he wanted to invite had all been invited to his house by Guozhang Chao. While they were talking, the princess consort had already gone to the toilet twice. She was about to collapse. Prince Ning saw that the situation was really bad. He thought for a while and said, Come, prepare the horse. Yes. The servant didn't dare to ask more and hurriedly ran to prepare the horse for Prince Ning. Only Prince Ning's son was bold enough to ask, Where is Wang Yi going? He was now the Prince Ning's son and the adopted prince, so he could only address Prince Ning as Wang Yi. Prince Ning said in a deep voice, I'm going to the family Qin. Prince Ning's son was shocked and said, Wang Yi, you. Prince Ning glanced at the princess consort, whose face was pale and blue, as if she would die at any moment. He only said, Take good care of the princess consort. This king will immediately find a physician. He then left the residence and galloped out. And Qin Yining was currently in his room. He was holding Airbai as he leaned against the chaise lounge and read a book. Airbai's furry paws were stepping on Qin Yining's stomach. It wasn't heavy, but it was a little itchy. Qin Yining couldn't help but touch Airbai's round body as he read. Bing Tang, Song Lan, Ji Yun, and Qiu Lu were all sitting around the square table, doing needlework and chatting. The bedroom was filled with a peaceful and warm atmosphere. At this moment, a young maid's voice came from outside. Fourth young lady, fourth young lady. Qin Yining looked up at the half-open window and asked the maid downstairs, What's wrong? Prince Ning is here, but he didn't enter the residence. He's outside the residence now and says he wants to see Miss and Bing Tang. He's here. Qin Yining suddenly stood up. Airbai, who had been carelessly forgotten by her, slid to the ground and fell on its butt. Qin Yining quickly picked up the little rabbit and made sure that Airbai was fine. Only then did he relax and pass Airbai to Qiu Lu. He turned around and instructed Bing Tang, Come with me to take a look. Yes. Miss, I'll go with you too, Ji Yun said. Okay. The three of them went out of the bedroom and saw the girls next door and the people around them craning their necks to look around. Obviously, they had heard the girls' words and were curious about why Prince Ning came to Qin Yining. Meanwhile, someone quickly passed the news to Qin Huayuan, who was fishing by the fish pond. Qin Yining brought Bing Tang and Ji Yun to the entrance of the residence. Prince Ning was holding a horsewhip in his hand and standing beside a red horse with a frown on his face. No one knew what he was thinking. Qin Yining bowed. "Greetings, Wang Yi. May I know why Wang Yi is looking for me?" Prince Ning saw Bing Tang beside Qin Yining and said, "To be honest, the princess consort is unwell and we can't get an imperial physician. This king is here to ask Miss Tang for help." Qin Yining looked surprised and asked knowingly, "Why can't we get an imperial physician? What's wrong with the princess consort?" At the mention of this, Prince Ning became angry and said angrily, "That son of a bitch Chao Bingzhong. He said that he's sick and asked all the imperial physicians to leave. This king thinks that he's doing this on purpose." At this point, Prince Ning looked at Qin Yining and said in a low voice, "Today, the princess consort entered the palace to pay respects to the empress, but she was drugged. This king has asked a physician to examine her, but he said that there's no cure. Unfortunately, we can't get an imperial physician with great medical skills to come. So, this king came to find Miss Tang." Qin Yining had a look of disbelief. Chao Guizhong actually knows how to. Okay, Bing Tang, quickly go back and get your medicine box. Ji Yun, quickly ask someone to bring a horse here. Saving people is like putting out a fire. We don't have time to take a carriage. Let's ride a horse. It'll be faster. Yes. Ji Yun and Bing Tang obeyed and rushed into the residence. Prince Ning was very satisfied with Qin Yining's tactfulness. In addition, his family Qin had been harassed badly by Chao Guizhong today, so he felt that they were in the same boat. He couldn't help but curse. Chao Guizhong is too arrogant. He ordered the empress to drug this king's princess consort and used an excuse to invite all the imperial physicians. He clearly wants the princess consort to die. Qin Yining asked doubtfully, "But why is he doing this? What reason does Chao Guizhong have to make things difficult for you? You're Wang Yi." Wang Yi. Chao Guizhong doesn't care about this king at all. A few days ago, there was only a small conflict in business. He actually used such a vicious method and used the empress's power to suppress others. The more Prince Ning thought about it, the angrier he became. He wished that he could just take a knife and kill his way to the Chao family. Qin Yining pursed his lips and looked like he was in a dilemma. He didn't want to make any comments. Prince Ning didn't expect Qin Yining to say anything. He didn't want to argue with her and just sulked. Not long after, Ji Yun and Bing Tang came one after another. The three of them got on their horses and followed Prince Ning to the Prince Ning's residence at full speed. Along the way, Qin Yining carefully controlled the silver-white colt. Only then did she feel relieved. Her plan was supposed to wait for a few days. She wanted to catch a flaw in the Chao family and use the princess consort's matter to cause conflict between Prince Ning and the Chao family. She wanted to give the Chao family a double blow. Unexpectedly, Chao Guizhong fell ill and called all the imperial physicians on duty to the Chao family. Qin Yining had instructed Master Zhong to pay attention to the Chao family's movements. As soon as she learned that Chao Guizhong fell ill and all the imperial physicians were transferred away, she immediately brought forward the plan. She asked Rose to add the laxative in the almond tea rewarded by the demon empress. Today, even if Prince Ning found an imperial physician, no one could cure the laxative made by Bing Tang because it had to be combined with the Tang family's unique acupuncture technique. In the end, Prince Ning still asked them to come to the Chao family as a last resort. In this way, she had already kicked him in the head. What she wanted was not to kneel down and cry. She wanted to use this matter to create estrangement between the Chao family and Prince Ning. She wanted Prince Ning to ask Bing Tang for help. She wanted the conflict between Prince Ning and the Chow family to be irreconcilable and make Prince Ning take sides. Perhaps she was too despicable. Qin Yining was not without guilt. However, she had no choice but to let Princess Consort Ning suffer a little. Fortunately, the laxative only made her have diarrhea and wouldn't kill her. When they returned to the Prince Ning's residence, Qin Yining naturally followed Prince Ning to the bedroom with Ji Yun and Bing Tang. At this time, Princess Consort Ning was about to faint from diarrhea. Qin Yining went to the bed and bowed to Princess Consort Ning before retreating to the side and standing with Prince Ning's son, daughter-in-law, and Princess Jialan. Bing Tang quickly went forward, put down his medical box, and checked Princess Consort Ning's pulse. Princess Consort Ning was a beautiful woman in her early 20s. She was very curious when she saw Qin Yining. However, because she was brought back by Prince Ning and there was a young girl in her early teens treating the princess consort was even more confused. Princess Jialan had met Qin Yining once before. She looked at Bing Tang and asked curiously, "Miss Qin's maid knows medicine?" Princess Jialan's words made everyone aware of Qin Yining's identity. Qin Yining said in a low voice, "Miss Tang inherited her father's business and has excellent medical skills." After hearing the words Miss Tang, everyone understood Bing Tang's identity. After all, everyone in the noble family knew that Qin Yining had taken an imperial physician Tang's orphan. Everyone quieted down and looked expectantly at Bing Tang. Bing Tang carefully checked Princess Consort Ning's pulse and checked her complexion and tongue. Then, she took out a needle and quickly inserted it into Princess Consort Ning's pulse. Prince Ning saw her inserting the needle and asked, "Sister Meng, can you tell what kind of poison Princess Consort Ning is poisoned with?" Bing Tang nodded and said, "Wang Yi, Princess Consort Ning's poison isn't a poison. It's just a modified laxative from the palace. Although it won't kill her, it will make her feel uncomfortable for several days. It's not impossible to cure. Once she takes the prescription and uses my needles, she'll be fine." When Prince Ning heard this, he let out a long sigh of relief. After Princess Consort Ning was inserted with the needle, she felt that her stomach didn't hurt anymore and didn't want to go to the toilet. Her complexion looked much better and she smiled gratefully at the young girl in front of her. Bing Tang felt a little guilty. After all, she was the one who made the medicine. Therefore, she smiled obediently at Princess Consort Ning. Then, she went back to write down the room and ordered the servants to prepare the medicine. Chapter 210. What a vicious woman. She dares to come after harming the princess consort. Ning Wang gritted his teeth and snorted coldly. Qin Yining's face was deathly pale as she held on to the back of a round chair, as if she had been frightened by the Empress' sudden appearance. Only then did everyone remember that there was a grudge between Qin Yining and the Empress. Previously, the two imperial concubines in the palace had been cooked by the Empress. It was said that the Empress had wanted to eat this Miss Qin from the very beginning. Seeing such a delicate young girl frightened like this, everyone couldn't help but feel pity for her. Princess Jialan pulled on Qin Yining's hand and asked, "Miss Qin, are you all right?" Qin Yining's face was deathly pale as she shook her head. I'm fine. Perhaps it's because it's too hot outside. Should I go and rest for a while?" Qin Yining looked inquiringly at Ning Wang. If she stayed here and let the Empress see her communicating with Ning Wang, it would certainly speed up the conflict between Ning Wang and the Empress. However, although Ning Wang was a lecherous person, he wasn't an idiot. Right now, he was angry and didn't understand. Once he calmed down, it would be easy for him to discover that she had purposely stayed behind to avoid the Empress. Thus, she gave the right to decide to Ning Wang. Ning Wang thought for a moment and said, "Jialan, help Miss Qin to your room to rest for a while. You two sisters can also talk." His words implied that he tacitly approved of the relationship between Qin Yining and Princess Zhelan. I was just about to talk to Big Sister Qin. Princess Zhelan supported Qin Yining's arm and smiled. Big Sister came here to save my mother and got caught in the heat. I don't know how to thank you. Big Sister Princess, there's no need to be so polite. Qin Yining declined with a smile. Because they didn't know who was older and who was younger, they both called each other Big Sister. The two walked out hand in hand. Ji Yun walked with Princess Zhelan's palace maids and mamas. The heir said, Wang Yi, let's go welcome the Empress first. We shouldn't make her wait too long. Ning Wang knew that his son was right, but he was so angry that he was dizzy. He really wanted to kill the demon Empress, so how could he still want to receive her? She harmed this king's princess consort, and she still wants this king to escort her. At this time, Qin Yining had just descended the stairs with Princess Zhelan when he saw a slim figure in red walk in from the main entrance. She was surrounded by a group of people. Looking up, who else could it be but the Empress? Qin Yining secretly heaved a sigh of relief. It wasn't that she didn't want to leave, but that the demon Empress had come uninvited and coincidentally bumped into them when she entered the courtyard. If Ning Wang wanted to blame someone, he would blame the demon Empress for being too careless and walking around the residence as she pleased. When Princess Zhelan saw the Empress, her expression changed. She quietly let go of Qin Yining's hand and stepped forward to greet her. Greetings to the Empress. Qin Yining seemed to be scared out of her wits. She froze for a moment before kneeling down as well. This subject greets the Empress. As the Empress walked, her red pomegranate dress swayed in the wind. The golden buyao on her peony bun swayed with her steps, making her seem noble and arrogant, bright and luxurious. Glancing at Qin Yining and Princess Zhelan who were kneeling on the ground, the Empress said in a lazy and gentle voice, Oh, I didn't expect the young miss of the family Qin to have such a wide range of connections. She's close friends with Princess Zhelan. How come I didn't know that you two were so close? Princess Zhelan lowered her head. The hand hidden under the embroidered handkerchief clenched into a fist. The one who had been harmed was her mother, and this arrogant woman in front of her was the main culprit. How could she not hate her? No matter how steady Princess Zhelan was, she couldn't help but be angry. She coldly retorted, the Empress is in charge of the harem. She has to deal with a myriad of affairs every day. How could she know everything? If she knew everything, wouldn't she be a god? She was implying that the Princess Zhelan shouldn't think of herself as a god. If she continued to be so arrogant, she would become an immortal sooner or later. The Empress sneered, I didn't expect the princess to be so eloquent after not seeing her for a few days. It seems that you're a bad influence. Befriending an old fox's little fox, you should be careful not to be schemed against. Princess Zhelan was so angry that her entire body trembled. Qin Yining lowered his head. He was hesitating whether or not to speak when he heard Prince Ning's voice. No matter if it's an old fox or a little fox, this king looks cute. He's better than a 1,000-year-old fox spirit who brings disaster to the country. Prince Ning led the crown prince, second master, and third master to the corridor and bowed to the Empress. Although he was polite, everyone could tell that he was scolding the Empress when he said, 1,000-year-old fox spirit. Legend had it that the Emperor of Axian, Shang, and Zhou had provoked Nuwa because of his lust. That was why a 1,000-year-old fox spirit descended to the mortal world to seduce the emperor and bring chaos to the Shang dynasty. And now, it seemed like the current situation of Great Yan dynasty matched with the legends in a few aspects. Back then, when the emperor ascended to the goddess temple and worshipped the statue of Lady Mother of the Chariot, he met the empress who was going out to play. The emperor regarded the empress as a celestial being. From then on, he brought her into the palace and doted on her to the heavens. He did not hide the fact that the two of them had expressed their love in front of the statue of Lady Mother of the Chariot. Later, the emperor became more and more muddle-headed and tyrannical. He obeyed the empress's every word and persecuted the meritorious officials and good people. The empress was even more ruthless. It wasn't like she hadn't eaten human flesh and drank human blood before. It almost coincided with the incident of Shangzhou and Daji. There were many such legends outside, but not many of them reached the empress's ears. This was because Prince Ning was bold enough to say it in front of the empress. The empress was so angry that her face turned pale. She said coldly, "It seems that I was wrong to come today. I heard that you're old and weak. You'll fall ill when you come out of the palace to greet me. I thought that you're my sisters-in-law, so I took the time to come and see you. I didn't expect Prince Ning's mansion to treat me like this. There's no need to trouble the empress." Prince Ning saw that the empress was so arrogant. How could she come to visit a sick person? She was obviously drugged and came to watch the show. She said that the empress was old. Wasn't she mocking him for being old too? Prince Ning wasn't one to suffer losses. He immediately retorted, "But time is unforgiving. Who can be old or young? The empress is also old. It's better for you to cultivate your body and mind well so that you can make imperial brother like you. It's better for you not to stretch your hands too far. Otherwise, you'll be chopped off. You." The empress was so angry that her beautiful eyes widened. She glared at Prince Ning. Prince Ning didn't want to be outdone. He didn't invite the empress to sit, but he also didn't want to give in. The empress was full of anger and grievance. Her tears were about to fall. When she saw Qin Yining after entering the palace, the empress started to suspect whether Prince Ning was colluding with the Qin Huaiyuan family. Now that Prince Ning was acting strangely and didn't respect her identity, the empress was even more certain. What angered her the most was that he called her a 1,000-year-old fox spirit. She met Tian Jizi by chance. When they first met, Tian Jizi didn't know her identity. When he saw her, he read her fortune. He said that she was a fairy descending to the mortal world, a true dragon's treasure. He also said that she was rich and noble, with purple energy covering her body and holding the world in her hands. At the time, she thought that Tian Jizi was really as magical as the legend said. His fortune was really accurate. But the more time passed, the more she felt that something was wrong. At least when she occasionally calmed down, she felt that her fate was similar to Deji's. However, she seriously bribed Tian Jizi. She thought that it might be a coincidence. After all, Tian Jizi's fortune was good. She didn't think that this kind of rumor wasn't just spread outside. Now, even a brute like Prince Ning dared to say it in front of her. "I didn't think that Prince Ning would treat me like this. Prince Ning being so disrespectful to me is also disrespectful to the emperor. Could it be that you want a rebel? The empress is the empress. Women should be in charge of the harem. How shameless do you think you are to speak on behalf of my imperial brother? Who do you think you are? You're a part-time vulgar person. This old man has been vulgar for more than a day or two. I didn't invite the empress to see. The empress came to this king's palace to flaunt her power and abuse her power. Do you think that I, Yuqi Jinming, am a soft persimmon that can be bullied by others? If it doesn't work, then let's go judge in front of imperial brother. This king wants to see if imperial brother will protect this king, his own younger brother." The empress was so angry that tears welled up in her eyes. In the end, she didn't continue to shout in anger. Because she had followed the emperor for many years, she knew that the emperor and Prince Ning had a good relationship. If she went to the emperor and had the emperor deal with Prince Ning, she might not succeed. After all, their Chao family was also at a critical juncture. It wasn't good to cause trouble. The Empress gritted her teeth and finally left in a huff. She only thought that one day, she would deal with Prince Ning. Seeing the Empress leave in anger, the heir said worriedly, "Wang Yi, I'm afraid this isn't good." The Empress' words have a lot of weight in the Emperor's ears. If we do this, won't we completely fall out with him? Fuck his mother, this old man is afraid of that slut. She's already bullying this old man, and you want this old man to endure. Prince Ning was born in the army, so when he cursed, his voice was as loud as a bell. He didn't care if the Empress was far away or if she could hear him. He kicked a potted kumquat plant in the corridor to the ground. The ceramic flower pot fell to the ground and made a loud noise. The soil and flowers scattered all over the ground. Qin Yining and Princess Zhelan supported each other as they stood up. Ji Yun carefully stood by Qin Yining's side. Qin Yining thought for a bit and said, "Wang Yi, this young woman will take her leave first. Bing Tang will stay in your palace for the time being to treat Princess Consort. When Princess Consort gets better, this young woman will come to pay her respects." Prince Ning nodded and said, "Thank you for your trouble today, Miss Qin. Come, send Miss Qin out." "I don't dare." After exchanging pleasantries, Qin Yining left with Ji Yun. Looking at Qin Yining's back, the heir whispered to Prince Ning, "Wang Yi, don't you think there's something strange about today's matter? After all, the conflict between the family Qin and the Chao family isn't new. How could there be such a coincidence?" Prince Ning glanced at the heir and narrowed his eyes as he looked at Qin Yining's back. "If it's really a trap, I don't know if this is the old fox's trap or the young fox's trap." Qin Yining and Ji Yun left the prince's residence and rode back to family Qin. At the same time, someone from the prince's residence reported, "Wang Yi, Marquis Anping requests an audience." Chapter 211. Ning Wang turned around and waved his hand at the heir, indicating that he didn't need to follow. Then he walked down the red steps and asked the steward, "How many people know that he came?" "Wang Yi, the Marquis of Anping came from the side door in disguise. No one saw him. Right now, only you, the heir, and this old servant know. Even if others saw him, they wouldn't be able to recognize him. This old servant has arranged for him to stay in your small study in the outer courtyard. Right now, he's having tea." "Very good." Ning Wang and the steward's figures disappeared around the corner. Ning Wang's heir knew that he couldn't interfere in this matter. He just needed to keep his mouth shut. Qin Huayuan and Ning Wang weren't close in the past. It was just that they each had their own way of doing things. This was the first time that Qin Huayuan had taken the initiative to visit. When Ning Wang arrived at the small study, Qin Huayuan was already sitting on a round chair and drinking half a cup of tea. Seeing Ning Wang Yi, Qin Huayuan stood up and bowed, "Greetings, Wang Yi." No need for formalities. Ning Wang's gaze swept over the room and saw the exquisite gift box on the table. There was also a colorful coral bonsai on the ground that was half the height of a person. He casually opened the lid of the gift box. Inside was Yan Jinqing's letter. This kind of authentic work was hard to buy even with 1,000 gold. Qin Huayuan was actually willing to give it away. Ning Wang's heart burned with anger. He looked disdainfully at Qin Huayuan. Sitting at the head of the table, he said coldly, "Marquis of Anping, these things are too precious." Qin Huayuan could see Ning Wang's disdain for him, but he wasn't angry. He only smiled and said, "Look at this Yan Jinqing's letter. Is it good? Is the coral still bright?" Ning Wang's disdain deepened. He secretly thought that Qin Huayuan brought such a precious gift to settle the matter for his daughter. He probably didn't want to have anything to do with him, and he definitely didn't want to offend the Empress because of him. How could this be called a man? He was bullied by the Chao family to the point that his pants were about to be ripped off, but this coward didn't dare to fight back. In public, the Chao family was a scum that brought disaster to the country and the people. Privately, Chao Guizhong persecuted the family Qin, and the demon empress even wanted to eat the flesh of the family Qin's daughter. How could he endure such a deep hatred? How could he be so thick-skinned as to present a gift to cut off all ties with him? The fire in Prince Ning's heart was suddenly ignited as if someone had poured hot oil on it. He slapped the table, stood up angrily and said, "The Marquis of Enrich is a pillar of the imperial court. This king thought that you were also a heroic figure, but he didn't expect you to be so cowardly. You actually curried favor with those in power just to survive. Then what was the Chao family? I've already trampled you under my feet, and you still want to live in peace. Are you afraid that this king will burden you? Asking your daughter's maidservant to treat the princess consort caused you to be paralyzed with fear? Qin Meng, are you a man? I think you're just a coward." Prince Ning was already full of anger today. When he saw the two precious gifts and Qin Huayuan's elegant smile after being scolded, he became even angrier. He scolded Qin Huayuan, but it wasn't enough. He pointed at Qin Huayuan's nose and scolded him. He cursed the female elders of the family Qin, and then cursed the ancestors of the family Qin. He almost threw him out. Qin Huayuan sat elegantly on the round-backed chair and watched Prince Ning flip out. He looked at him as if he was looking at an impulsive child. When Prince Ning's mouth was dry from scolding, Qin Huayuan handed him a cup of tea at the right time. Prince Ning was so angry that he almost smashed the teacup. "Wang Yi, calm down." Qin Huayuan smiled. Prince Ning seemed to have punched cotton. Why did he encounter such a troublesome piece of meat? Qin Huayuan said gently, "Wang Yi, calm down. Rest for a while and listen to me. I didn't bring these two gifts for you." Prince Ning's hand trembled and he almost dropped the teacup. His face immediately turned red, and he asked awkwardly, "Not for this king? Didn't you come here to smooth things over for your daughter?" Wang Yi misunderstood. Qin Huayuan smiled as he flipped through the pages of the precious book. "Could it be that your highness has forgotten what Minister of State Chao loves?" Prince Ning reacted and murmured, "That old guy loves calligraphy. His calligraphy is not bad." "Yes." Qin Huayuan said with a smile, "These two gifts are to his liking. I brought them to Wang Yi so that Wang Yi can take them to Guizhong Chao to apologize." When Prince Ning heard this, he felt a little angry. However, he learned his lesson and didn't immediately flare up. Instead, he asked seriously, "Marquis of Enrich, what do you mean?" Wang Yi also knows that the 3 armies, the 5 army camps, the 3,000 army camp, the Divine Machine camp, and the Capital Region camp have 350,000 soldiers gathered outside the city without a leader. The commander's seal is empty. Peng Zhishi's 100,000 Tiger army is entrenched in Xihua City, which is on the opposite side of the capital city. With so many soldiers and horses, it's naturally impossible for them to fight on their own. To guard the capital city, they must have a commander. However, the emperor hasn't chosen who to hold the commander's seal. Prince Ning sneered, "Imperial brother, aren't you counting on the Taiden to send troops?" "The problem is that we can't count on the Taiden now. As far as I know, the Taiden princess supported her younger brother as the new Khan, and she and her husband are regents to govern the Taiden together. The Taiden's old officials are unconvinced, and the young Khan's followers are also unconvinced. Their country is in chaos, so it's impossible for them to send troops. Besides, the mountain is high and the road is long, so what's the use of sending troops? The emperor will see this clearly sooner or later." Seeing that Qin Huayuan's information on the Taiden was the same as his own, Prince Ning nodded. Qin Huayuan said, "The emperor has been unwilling to choose a commander for a long time, so he's also in a dilemma. Now that Chao Guizhong has become the Grand Preceptor, although he failed to contact the Titan, the emperor doesn't need to torment the Grand Preceptor anymore. After Chao Guozhang was restored, he participated in court affairs, so the emperor definitely won't hand over the military power to Chao Guozhang. And now the emperor doesn't trust you, Prince Ning said. That's right, so the commander's seal won't be handed over to me either. The person the emperor wants to choose must be someone he can control, who also has enough prestige to command the 350,000 soldiers. But we still have to pay attention, although Chao Guozhang doesn't have the power to be elected, he has the power to veto. If the emperor chooses someone, and Chao Guozhang blindly opposes it, the emperor may have no choice but to compromise. Since the words were said so clearly, even if Qin Huaiyuan didn't say the following words, Prince Ning understood. So you want me to curry favor with Chao Guozhang? It can't be considered to be curry favor. The art of war is deceitful. Wang Yi is a hero on the battlefield, so I don't need to say more. Besides, a real man knows when to yield and when to stand tall. Right now, you just need to send a gift, apologize, and express your goodwill, so that Chao Guozhang will lower his guard against you, and let him feel that you can be controlled by him. In that case, the commander's seal for the 350,000 soldiers will all be in your hands. After saying this, Qin Huaiyuan stood up, bowed deeply to Prince Ning, and said solemnly, Wang Yi, the Dian is on the verge of collapse. In the Dian dynasty, the only person who has the ability to command the troops to defend the capital and fight against Pang Zhishi is none other than you. If the commander's seal falls into the hands of Chao Guozhang's group of idiots, the Dian dynasty will really be finished. Therefore, whether it's for public or private reasons, I ask Wang Yi to take action. Prince Ning looked at Qin Huaiyuan's sincere face, and his previous misunderstanding of Qin Huaiyuan disappeared. How was this person a coward? He was a truly strong man. Moreover, he didn't make any mistakes. He really lived up to the name of Pan and the Wise. When he thought about how he had pointed at Qin Huaiyuan's nose and scolded him until he was black and blue, and even cursed his ancestors, Prince Ning's face heated up. He couldn't help but cough, and stood up to return the bow. This king was reckless just now. Marquis Anping, please don't take it to heart. I can understand Wang Ye's anger. If it were me, I would also be angry. Qin Huaiyuan smiled. Seeing that Qin Huaiyuan didn't take it to heart, Prince Ning felt relieved. He put away the letter, nodded, and said, Good, this king understands your meaning. However, this king still has a question he wants to ask you. Wang Yi, please speak. Qin Huaiyuan raised his eyebrows, puzzled. Prince Ning said, Today's matter, was it you and the young miss of your residence who set up a trap for this king to fall into? When Qin Huaiyuan heard this, he laughed and waved his hand, saying, Wang Yi is worrying too much. I just heard that you invited Miss Tang here, and that the princess consort was harmed by the empress, so I came here on the spur of the moment. Prince Ning nodded with a smile, and didn't pursue the matter. At this point, whether it was a trap or a coincidence was no longer important to him. Because Prince Ning saw hope. As long as he had military power, he wouldn't have to be idle and could do more things. At least, he could do something for the country. Qin Yining didn't know that Qin Huaiyuan had gone to Prince Ning's residence, and Qin Huaiyuan didn't ask Qin Yining about what was going on outside. Bing Tang stayed at Prince Ning's residence to treat the princess consort's illness, and Qin Yining, Ji Yun, Song Lan, and Qiu Lu peacefully lived their lives. On the surface, the days were calm and peaceful. But in reality, Qin Yining felt that this was the calm before the storm. Her heart was hanging. She didn't know what the Chao family would do, whether they would continue to persecute the family Qin. She also didn't know if the conflict between Prince Ning and the Chao family would cause Prince Ning to help the family Qin. She had done everything she could. Now, she could only resign herself to fate. But the next night, she heard from Master Zhong that Prince Ning had gone to the Chow family to apologize. Qin Yining immediately felt her heart turn cold. It seemed that Prince Ning was also afraid of the imperial power and the Chow family's power. At this critical juncture, it wasn't a good choice to oppose the Chow family. Prince Ning Wangyi could be considered to know when to yield and when to stand tall. But what about her family? That night, Qin Yining was so worried that she couldn't sleep. She lay under the mosquito net and fanned herself with the silk fan. She didn't know if it was because she was irritated or because it was really hot in the summer, but Qin Yining tossed and turned like a pancake. She only felt a little sleepy when it was midnight. Just as she was about to fall asleep, she suddenly heard what seemed to be the sound of a gong being struck outside. Qin Yining quivered and opened her eyes. She heard someone shout, "Fire! Fire!" Qin Yining's heart jumped. She quickly got off the ground and put on her shoes, heading to the balcony outside the attic. At this time, the maidens and servants living in the master's residence had also woken up. They all gathered at the balcony and windows to look outside. They saw that in the direction of Xingning Garden, there was already fire. Chapter 212. Qin Yining also felt that it was strange. Ever since she took over the household, the situation in the imperial court was tense. Qin Yining specially arranged for servants to work at night in every empty courtyard to prevent such things from happening. It was already late today. Could it be that the servants who worked at night were careless? After Qin Yining returned to her room and dressed properly, she said, "I'll go down and take a look. This servant will follow you." Ji Yun had also dressed properly. Qin Yining nodded and instructed Qiu Lu and Song Lan to look after the house. Then, she went out with Ji Yun. Because the other sisters were not in charge of the household, even though they discovered that the house was on fire, they only watched curiously and did not pay much attention to it. When they saw Qin Yining going downstairs with the servants, the sisters all smiled and reminded her to be careful. "It's nothing. Everyone should rest. Be careful of mosquitoes outside." Qin Yining also smiled and instructed them. The oldest of the girls, the third cousin sister, had already gotten married. Qin Yining, the fourth cousin, was usually in charge of the household affairs in the inner residence. Therefore, the younger sisters all respected her very much. They all obediently returned to their rooms. Unexpectedly, just as Qin Yining and Ji Yun walked into the courtyard, a scream suddenly sounded from the night sky. "Ah, Ji Yun, did you hear that?" Qin Yining's palms were cold. "The situation is not right." Ji Yun's expression became serious. "Miss, we should..." Before she could finish speaking, another scream sounded. This time, it was not far away. Following that, there was the sound of weapons clashing. Qin Yining grabbed Ji Yun's hand. "I'm afraid that bandits have entered." The sisters who were still in their rooms also heard the noise. They all put on their clothes and went downstairs. Some of the bolder mamas went to the entrance of the courtyard and stood guard there with wooden sticks. At this moment, a shout came from outside the courtyard. "Bandits have entered the residence. Everyone, close the doors." Someone else shouted, "Who are you people? How dare you trespass into the Marquis's residence? We have already reported this to the authorities. The people from the 5 cities warden's office will be here soon." The ones shouting were the guards of the family Qin, but the other side didn't make a sound. They only heard the clashing of weapons and the loud roars of the guards. Occasionally, there were the screams of maids and servants, and the sounds were coming from outside the courtyard. "Miss, what should we do?" Qiu Lu and Song Lan were so nervous that their faces turned pale. The few young ladies were also scared to the point that their faces turned pale and hugged each other. Qin Yining was a little confused. who had barged into the Marquis's estate. Was it the Chow family? Or other enemies of Qin Huaiyuan? Several courtyards in the back residence were on fire. This group of bandits must not have been able to determine which courtyard they were staying in, so they set the fires randomly. Listening to the voices outside, they were actually here to exterminate a family. Just as the outside of the courtyard was engulfed in flames and screams of agony and the sounds of fighting intertwined, the courtyard door of the master of the pavilion was slammed open with a loud bang, scaring the people in the courtyard into letting out cries of alarm. Miss 8 cried out, "Mother!" Miss 6 immediately covered her mouth, "Don't make a sound." Immediately, a rough male voice came from outside the door, "Those women are all here." The courtyard door was slammed open with a loud bang. The two women guarding the door were so frightened that they couldn't even hold on to their sticks and continuously retreated. Qin Yining hurriedly whispered, "Don't make a sound. Quickly run." Just as he finished speaking, the crumbling courtyard door fell to the ground with a loud bang. A masked man holding a steel saber barged in and chopped down the two women closest to him with a single slash. Blood splattered everywhere. Qin Yining's pupils suddenly contracted. He pulled Miss 8, who was closest to him, and ran. This group of people really were here to exterminate a family. Ji Yun, Qiu Liu, and Song Lan all followed closely behind. Miss 6, Miss 7, and Qin Yining all held hands as they ran for their lives. However, there were many bandits. Even though the courtyard guards hastily rushed over to stop them, there were still a few who caught up. The maidservants were slightly better off. They exercised on a daily basis and didn't have their feet bound, so they ran a bit faster. However, the maidservants in the family all had their feet bound. The loyal maidservants protected their young misses while they lagged behind. When they were caught, they would be slashed. A few maidservants and women were hacked to death on the spot. Upon seeing this, Ji Yun pulled out the soft sword wrapped around her waist. She no longer cared about the others. With one hand, she pulled Qin Yining and ran to the back of the master's study building. Ji Yun. "Miss, I can't beat so many people. There were too many assassins." It was difficult for two fists to fight against four hands. Wang Yi had instructed her to protect Qin Yining thoroughly, so she could only harden her heart and not care about the others. Qin Yining was pulled a little faster by Ji Yun. His other hand was still holding Miss 8, who was closest to him. As he ran, he kept looking back. She saw Miss 7, who was lagging behind, being stabbed in the abdomen by a knife. When the knife was pulled out, the cold gleam of the knife reflected the firelight and shone on Miss 7's round eyes. She also saw Qin Yining push Miss 6, who was running in front of him, away when he saw that they were about to catch up. The knife cut Miss 6's neck, and blood spurted out a few feet high. Tears blurred his eyes. Qin Yining thought that his scream of terror was very loud, but all that came out was a soft grunt. Everything happened too quickly and too suddenly. Qin Yining felt like he was in a nightmare. Flames filled the sky, and corpses were strewn all over the ground. The courtyard had become a living hell. Perhaps it was too easy to kill a group of women and children. The bandit was actually laughing out loud as he hacked away at them. "Didn't you say that with Qin Si around, even the Dian dynasty couldn't be destroyed? Why was your family destroyed? Hand Qin Si over, and I'll give you a quick death." Qin Yining's eyes widened. They were actually here for her. If they were here because of that rumor, they must be from Dezhou. Qin Yining, who was about to be caught up, immediately pointed at Qin Yining. "That's Miss 4. Sure enough, the assassin who was close in front of them bypassed Qin Yining and Qiu Liu, who was beside her, and rushed straight for Qin Yining. Ji Yun gritted her teeth and shielded Qin Yining behind her. She brandished her flexible sword and rushed forward to stop the assassin. She shouted, "Miss, run quickly." Qin Yining retreated and watched as Ji Yun blocked the assassin. At this moment, she hated her own incompetence. However, she had no other choice but to run. There were many assassins. In the blink of an eye, someone bypassed Ji Yun and stabbed Qin Yining in the face. Qin Yining cried out in alarm and dodged sideways. However, her movements were still too slow. She only felt a warm sensation on her right shoulder. Blood immediately gushed out, and her body fell forward. Miss 8 and Song Lan, who were beside her, screamed in horror. Song Lan gritted her teeth and rushed forward. She hugged Qin Yining and protected her under her body. The assassin followed up with a stab and stabbed Song Lan in the back. Song Lan. Qin Yining felt the weight on her body and the warmth from the fresh blood. Finally, she cried out loud. The assassin pulled out the stab and allowed the fresh blood to splash on his face. He kicked Song Lan away and slashed at Qin Yining again. Ji Yun was about to catch up, but she was not fast enough. She could only scream with her eyes wide open, "Miss." At this critical moment, a stab suddenly flew over and hit the assassin's arm. The assassin dropped the stab in pain. Qin Yining took the opportunity to roll away. When she got up, she saw 5 men in black with silver masks descending from the sky and protecting the survivor behind them. They were silver mask spies. These 5 men were obviously highly skilled in martial arts. They blocked the 7 or 8 bandits who were chasing after them. One of them shouted, "The warden's office of the 5 cities will be here soon. Quickly protect Miss and leave." One of the men in black came forward and pulled up Qin Yining, who was still hugging Song Lan. "Quickly leave." Ji Yun also protected Qin Yining by her side and retreated while fighting. Miss 8, Qin Yining and Qiu Lu, who were lucky enough to survive, hurriedly followed the silver mask spies. Chapter 213. The silver-masked secret agents were well-trained and had excellent martial arts skills. 4 of them blocked the assassins, and one of them protected Qin Yining and the others as they left through the back door of the master's house. They ran along the path in the back garden to a sparsely populated area. Qin Yining's right shoulder was burning with pain at this time. Blood dripped down with her movements and dyed half of her sleeve red. Her vision turned black. As she ran, she untied the handkerchief from her waist and wrapped it tightly around her shoulder. Ji Yun, who was following beside her, quickly tied a knot for her. Not long after, they met the old madam and the others who had escaped under the protection of the silver-masked secret agents. Qin Yining forced herself to look at the other side. Qin Huayuan and Third Old Master were protecting the old madam, whose hair was disheveled. Beside them was the stumbling Mammy Qin. The Sun clan followed closely behind, holding 5th Old Master Qin Xian with one hand and Mother Jean with the other. Qin Han was holding the 6-year-old 10th Old Master Qin Rong in his arms and his wife, Madame Meng, with the other hand. Eldest Old Master Qin Yu was holding 11th Old Master Qin Zong, who was covered in blood. Behind him, 2nd Old Master was supporting 2nd Madam, who was also covered in blood. Then there were 2 concubines and several maids. Behind them were the guards and silver-masked secret agents. Where was 3rd Madam? Young Mistress Yu. And 9th Old Master Qin Xian, who was only 11 years old. Qin Yining's brain was buzzing. Her vision turned black and she almost fell. Fortunately, Ji Yun supported her with her arms. "Miss. Sister Yi, how are you?" Qin Huayuan came forward and supported Qin Yining. Seeing that half of her body was covered in blood and her face was pale, he asked anxiously, "Where are you hurt?" "I'm fine." Qin Yining weakly buried her face in her father's arms. The old madam and the others had already asked anxiously in a sharp voice, "Where are sixth old master and seventh old master?" Eighth young mistress also found that third madam and her concubine were missing. She walked around in the crowd several times and cried, "Where's my mother? Where's my aunt?" The 11th Master Qin Zong and the 8th young mistress were both concubine Ji's children. They immediately burst into tears, concubine Gu. The 6-year-old Qin Zong would never forget the scene of concubine Gu standing in front of him. When third old master recalled third madam's tragic state of being stabbed in the heart while hugging her son, he burst into tears. The scene instantly became chaotic. At this time, everyone deeply felt that the distance between life and death was so close. In the blink of an eye, they were separated forever. The assassins' attacks were still as ferocious as ever. The family retreated under the protection of the guards and the silver-masked spy. Qin Yining thought that once the warden's office of the 5 cities received the news, they should be here soon. Who would have thought that at this moment, a silver-masked man would rush in and report to Qin Huaiyuan, "The imperial palace is on fire and has been attacked by assassins. Darren and the warden's office of the 5 cities are guarding the imperial palace and can't rush over. Darren wants the marquis to quickly hide." Others might not know who Silver Mask was referring to, but Qin Yining did. No wonder he didn't see Chao Yuqing in the crowd. Something had happened in the imperial palace. He had just let out a sigh of relief, but now his heart was in his throat again. The warden's office of the 5 cities didn't have time to care about the family Qin. Looking around, there were still around 30 assassins, and their martial arts weren't weak. There were only 10 spies in the family Qin. Including the surviving guards, they weren't a match for the assassins in the long run. The guards and spies were forced to retreat, barely able to protect such a large family. However, many of the courtyards in the inner residence were on fire. The paths that could have been taken were now impassable. With pursuers behind them and a fire in front, the family supported each other and quickly retreated to a dead end. Old Madam cried in despair, "The heavens really want to destroy our family Qin. The heavens want to destroy our family Qin." Second Madam leaned on Second Old Master, also crying in despair. At this moment, someone in the crowd whispered, "Didn't the assassins say that they wanted to hand someone over?" A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. In desperation and fear, someone said, "I also heard it. The assassins want fourth young miss." Everyone's eyes immediately gathered on Qin Yining, who was leaning on Qin Huaiyuan's arm. Old Madam looked at her son's back. Her lips trembled, but she didn't say anything. At this moment, everyone had different thoughts. Why didn't you die when they wanted you? Why did you have to kill your sister? The trembling and hoarse voice came from the second branch's concubine mother. Concubine Mother Lin was the birth mother of 6th young Miss and 7th young Mississippi. Concubine Mother Lin was about to collapse when she didn't see her twin daughters. When she heard this, she vented her anger on Qin Yining. "Isn't it enough that you've harmed the entire family? Do you still want the entire family to die?" Concubine Mother Lin, "Shut up." Second Old Master angrily rebuked. "Why do you want me to shut up? It's all Qin Yining's fault. It's all the eldest branch's fault. You've caused the deaths of so many people. You've caused the deaths of my twin sisters." Concubine Mother Lin seemed to have gone mad. She wanted to go forward and push Qin Yining, but Qin Huaiyuan raised his arm and blocked her. Second Old Master pulled Concubine Mother Lin away. "Tonight's matter isn't anyone's fault." Second Old Master angrily rebuked, "Concubine Mother Lin, do you still want to rebel?" Behind her was a raging fire. In front of her was an assassin who was about to kill her. Neither of her 2 daughters was left alive. "Ah!" Concubine Mother Lin screamed in despair and slammed her head against the wall. With a bang, red and white paint splattered all over the floor. Younger sister. Second old madam sobbed. Another one. Another one was killed. Qin Yining mournfully thought. His vision turned black, and his body gradually went limp. How are you, Sister Yi? Qin Huayuan was scared out of his wits. He hugged his beloved daughter tightly and sat down on the floor with her weight. Sister Yi, don't scare me. Sun clan member rushed over and knelt down. She snatched Qin Yining away. My son, my son. Madam, the young lady is injured and has lost too much blood. If we don't treat her now, I'm afraid she'll be in danger. Ji Yun pressed on Qin Yining's shoulder to stop the bleeding with one hand and tightened the bandage. However, this was simply treating the symptoms, not the root cause. Qin Huayuan's hands were covered in sticky blood. It was Qin Yining's blood. His only daughter's life was hanging by a thread. His home had been burned to the ground. His family members were either dead or injured. Was this the result of being a loyal official his whole life? What did he do wrong? If there was retribution, why didn't it fall on him alone? Protect the Marquis of Anping. Charge! Just as everyone was in despair, a thunderous roar suddenly came from outside the Chuehua Gate. It sounded like there were hundreds of people. The remaining 30 or so assassins saw that they couldn't take down the enemy by force and that reinforcements had arrived. They immediately stopped fighting and retreated. At the same time, a group of men dressed as ordinary people rushed in like a tide. They were holding axes, shovels, wooden sticks, and machetes. Qin Huayuan looked at them solemnly and knew that they were all people from the Qingtian Alliance. Although the people from the Qingtian Alliance came from the common people, they were led by some martial artists and chivalrous people. When the crowd broke into the residence and saw the 30 or so assassins fleeing, they didn't stay any longer. The 100 or so people chased after them. The silver-masked secret agents also took advantage of the situation to pursue. The crisis in the residence was resolved in an instant. Qin Huayuan hurriedly ordered the survivors to put out the fire, search and rescue, and call for a doctor. The people from the Water Dragon Bureau finally arrived. Qin Huayuan carried Qin Yining and placed her in a study in the outer courtyard that wasn't affected by the fire. He arranged for Ji Yun to watch over her. Because of the heavy casualties in the residence, the Sun Clan, Mother Jean, and Qiu Lu were arranged to take care of the old madam, second madam, and other injured people. When the fire was put out, the casualties were also counted. In the inner residence, half of the 39 female servants were gone. There were only a dozen or so guards left in the outer courtyard. The second branch's young mistress Yu, sixth young mistress, seventh young mistress, and concubine Mother Lin. The third branch's third madam and the legitimate son Zhou Yi had all died. In addition, the seriously injured Qin Yining and 11th Master Qin Zong had already fallen into a coma. It was unknown how many people had suffered light injuries. When the old madam heard that she had lost her favorite youngest daughter-in-law, eldest granddaughter-in-law, and two beautiful granddaughters, even Ji Xiang and Ru Yi, who had served her for many years, hadn't escaped this calamity, she immediately cried her heart out and fainted several times. The imperial physicians and doctors entered the residence and hurriedly went to treat everyone. Qin Huayuan, second Master Qin, and third Master Qin had to tidy up the residence, set up the mourning hall, and arrange for the funeral. They were so busy that they were both mentally and physically exhausted. After the 5 cities warden's office arrived, they arranged for a search of the residence, fearing that the remaining assassins might be hiding somewhere. At this time, no one noticed that when Qin Huayuan brought people to search the residence, the 3 black-clothed people who had been secretly observing for a long time avoided the people from the 5 cities warden's office and had already rushed to the courtyard in the outer courtyard where Qin Yining had been arranged. The wound on Qin Yining's shoulder that had been cut was at least 3 inches long. It extended from her shoulder blade to the top of her right chest. There was also a wound about an inch long on her right arm. Fortunately, she had wrapped the wound tightly and stopped the bleeding in time. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to hold on until the imperial physicians arrived. It took a while to stitch up the wound. After the imperial physicians applied medicine and bandaged her wound, they rushed to see the injured 11th master. Ji-yun took a cold handkerchief and placed it on Qin Yining's forehead. Seeing Qin Yining's restless sleeping face due to her high fever, she was so worried that she wanted to cry. She knew that Qin Yining had fainted because she had lost a lot of blood from her injuries. However, she was afraid that more of it was because she felt guilty towards her family. Song Lan had died in order to save Qin Yining. The 6th and 7th young misses had died in front of Qin Yining. Concubine Mother Lin had also committed suicide while harboring resentment. These were too big of a blow to Qin Yining, who had always been kind. Who exactly were those assassins? Why did they say those things? Many of the people who had survived such a catastrophe had lost their loved ones. If they held a grudge against Qin Yining because of this, then how could Qin Yining continue living in the family Qin in the future? Ji-yun then thought of Pang Xiao, and her entire body trembled. She had been arranged to protect Qin Yining, but she had let Qin Yining suffer such a serious injury. If little Wang Yi knew about this, he would probably skin her alive. Just as she was letting her imagination run wild, she suddenly felt that there was some movement on the roof. Ji-yun immediately became alert. She stood up and stood in front of the bed. Her large eyes looked around as she sized up her surroundings. Under the bright silk lamp, she saw a trace of dust on the roof. Ji-yun's heart trembled, and she hurriedly blew out the lamp. In the darkness, the soft sword she pulled out from her waist reflected a cold white light. At the same time, the tiles above her head suddenly fell. A black-clothed man descended from the sky and rushed towards the bed with a knife. However, he was blocked by Ji-yun. Another 2 people broke through the window and entered. They were also holding shining steel knives in their hands. The leader sneered, "Little girl, if you want to live, then get out of the way. We won't kill you. Who exactly are you people? Why did you attack my young lady?" Ji-yun's face was covered in cold sweat. She stood in front of the bed with her sword and said without backing down, "I will never abandon my young lady." "Ha! Since you are so loyal to protect your master, there's no harm in telling you. I'll let you know when you die." That person twirled the knife in his hand. "We are here on the orders of your majesty in Dezhou. Didn't you say that with this girl around, the Yan dynasty will never fall? Your majesty wants to get rid of the Yan dynasty as a protective talisman." "You?" Ji-yun was stunned. She didn't expect them to be sent by Emperor Zhou. No one knew how the rumors about the protective talisman came about more than the people who followed Qin Yining. She didn't expect that the rumors she created to avoid the fate of being eaten would lead to a fatal disaster. "Does Prince Zhongshuan know that you came here like this?" This little girl knows a lot." That person sneered. He couldn't be bothered to answer Ji-yun's question and swung his knife at her. Ji-yun hurriedly parried. However, when they really exchanged blows, Ji-yun realized that the martial arts of the 3 people in front of her were much better than that of the large group of assassins just now. She couldn't handle them alone. Ji-yun immediately understood. Just now, the large group of assassins had been randomly slashing and killing because they couldn't tell who their target was, so they simply killed all of them. And these 3 people had been hiding in the dark to observe, in order to ensure that their plan was foolproof. As expected, when Qin Yining was sent here for treatment by Qin Huayuan, his whereabouts had already been exposed. In addition, the Qin residence was in chaos now, and many people had died in the residence. There was no time to take care of him, so the three of them took advantage of the situation to sneak in. Ji-yoon secretly complained, but she gritted her teeth and held on. She definitely couldn't let Chin Yining get into trouble under her watch. Otherwise, she would also die. Moreover, she sincerely respected Chin Yining now. How could she let him die? However, martial arts were like physical strength. It wasn't something that could be exerted just because one wanted to. Ji-yoon was gradually losing. She had been cut several times and shouted for help, but no one responded. At this moment, a white light suddenly flashed through the window in the darkness. The assassin, who was about to swing his blade at the bed, stopped abruptly. Then, the door was kicked open, and a white figure flashed in. He stretched out his hands, and the other two people also froze in place. In the blink of an eye, the three experts were subdued. That person panted and said, "I'm late." Ji-yun's body was cut several times. Fortunately, the wounds were not deep and were not fatal. At this moment, she was exhausted and panting, but she refused to let down her guard. "Who are you?" The man took out a match from his bosom and lit the silk lantern. Ji-yoon looked carefully and said in surprise, "You are young Master Mu." The person who came was in his early 20s. He was tall and thin, with a delicate face. He was wearing a patched robe. At this moment, he was breathing unsteadily because he rushed over. Who else could it be but Mu Jinghu? Mu Jinghu frowned and said, "That fox hurriedly sent me over when he got the news. I didn't expect that I was still a step too late." Mu Jinghu turned around and looked curiously at Chin Yining, who was unconscious on the bed. He tilted his head and sized him up for a moment. Then, he put his hands behind his back and nodded seriously. His voice was flat as he said, "Oh, no wonder he asked me to protect him. It turns out that he is a beauty." Ji-yoon finally heaved a big sigh of relief. Her body went limp and she fell on the steps. She pointed at the three stiff and motionless people and said, "Young Master Mu, they. Do you want me to kill them? I think it's better to leave them alive." Mu Jinghu took out a small paper bag from his shabby sleeve and handed it to Ji-yoon. "This is the medicine I made for injuries." Chapter 2:14. Although Ji-yoon did not know which sect Mu Jinghu was from, she had already seen his ability to subdue the assassins in the blink of an eye. Furthermore, she had seen this person before when she was with Pang Xiao, so she was even more certain that this person was trustworthy. She stood up and said, "Many thanks to young master. I will have to trouble young master to wait at the door for a moment. I have to go back to my family's marquee first." Although Mu Jinghu was somewhat slow-witted and did not have much contact with the affairs of the world, he was not a fool. Thinking that there was a difference between men and women, he indeed should wait at the door. He grabbed the assassins' collars with each hand and carried them like two pieces of wood into the courtyard. He turned around and picked up another one, placing them in a line with the previous two, and stood in front of the study with his hands behind his back. Seeing him like this, Ji-yoon smiled gratefully and took the bag of medicine to find Qin Huayuan. Qin Huayuan had just sent away the people from the 5 cities warden's office. At this time, he saw Ji-yoon, who was fine just now, rushing over with injuries all over her body. He was so frightened that his face turned pale. "What happened? Didn't I tell you to serve Miss well?" Ji-yoon bowed and led Qin Huayuan to the side. She whispered, "Just now, 3 assassins came. Their martial arts were much better than the previous group of assassins. I could not fend them off and was injured. Fortunately, the swordsman sent by little Wang Yi to protect Miss arrived in time and took down the 3 assassins. This is the medicine that the swordsman gave me. Master, please ask the doctor to see if it is effective." Qin Huayuan took the medicine and held it in his hand. How could his intelligent mind not understand the crux of the matter? That group of people seemed to have planned this beforehand. First, they arranged for a large group of people to try their best to exterminate the family. Then, they arranged for people to feign an attack on the palace so that the people from the 5 cities' warden's office would not be able to rescue them in time. If they really did not succeed, they could also find a target and secretly attack Qin Yining when they let their guard down. And these people must have been arranged by the Emperor of Dezhou. After all, those who had ascended to the throne had a certain degree of faith in the mandate of heaven. Just like the Dian Emperor, regardless of whether he believed that the existence of Qin Yining could guarantee the stability of Dian, he would not touch Qin Yining. The Zhou Emperor also thought that regardless of whether it would work or not, he would kill Qin Yining first to destroy this protective talisman. Qin Huaiyuan gritted his teeth. He turned around and called for an imperial physician to examine the medicine first. The imperial physician carefully examined the medicine and clicked his tongue in wonder. "Marquis, this medicine is excellent. Although this old man does not understand the prescription, I know that the method used is brilliant." Qin Huaiyuan nodded and expressed his thanks before instructing the physician to treat Ji Yun's injuries. He then quickly walked towards the outer courtyard study. Ji Yun was worried about Qin Yining and only said that she would be fine after applying a little medicine. She also followed Qin Huaiyuan out. At this time, the sky was already turning white. The 3 black-clothed assassins lying horizontally in the courtyard of the outer courtyard study were still in the same position they were in when their acupoints were sealed. A tall and thin man wearing a light gray patched gown stood in the corridor with his hands behind his back. Behind him was a tightly shut door and a window with a hole in it. Qin Huaiyuan and Ji Yun entered the courtyard and first sized up Mu Jinghu. Mu Jinghu also looked at Qin Huaiyuan. His eyes were calm and stupefied. After a while, he seemed to have understood something. He went down the stairs and cupped his hands. "Hello, uncle." Qin Huaiyuan was very surprised. He felt that this young master seemed to be somewhat ignorant of the ways of the world. Who would address someone as uncle when they first met? It would inevitably make people feel that he was being overly familiar with them or trying to curry favor. However, Qin Huaiyuan still bowed seriously. "Hero, this old man is unable to repay you for saving my daughter today. If you need this old man's help in the future, this old man will definitely do his best to repay your kindness. Uncle, please don't be so polite. My surname is Mu. Many people call me Blockhead. If uncle doesn't mind, you can also call me Blockhead." Mu Jinghu hurriedly supported him. He glanced at the 3 people lying on the ground and said, "Let's tie these 3 up first. Do you need me to help interrogate them? I can make them wish they were dead, and they won't suffer any physical injuries." As he spoke, he seemed very pleased with himself and wagged his finger. Qin Huaiyuan did not have any ill feelings towards this overly familiar young man in front of him. On the contrary, he had seen a lot of things and his ability to observe people was top-notch. Although this young master was dressed shabbily, he was clean from head to toe. Moreover, he had a pair of calm and clear eyes. A person with such eyes must be a kind-hearted person. Perhaps he was the disciple of a reclusive expert, which was why he was so ignorant of worldly affairs. Many thanks to young Master Mu. Qin Huaiyuan turned around and instructed Ji Yun, "Go find a rope to tie them up. Now that the residence is in chaos, there is a shortage of manpower. Young miss, please forgive me." Ji Yun was overwhelmed by the favor and said repeatedly, "Marquis is too polite. This servant doesn't dare. Don't mention it. I still have to thank you for saving Sister Yi." Qin Huaiyuan couldn't bring himself to mention Pang Xiao because of the 3 people on the ground, so he said, "Young Master Mu, do you want to settle them down first?" "And, that's fine. Why don't I rest nearby? I've been entrusted with a task, so I have to fulfill it. I promised to protect her well, so I still have to do my best. That's fine too. Young master, please do as you wish. The residence has encountered a disaster, and the residence is in chaos. I hope young Master Mu can forgive me for not taking care of you well, Qin Huayuan said politely. Mu Jinghu waved his hand repeatedly and said with a smile, Uncle, you don't have to be so polite. We're all on the same side. Qin Huayuan was worried about Qin Yining, so he didn't continue to be courteous with this honest person. He first went into the house to check on Qin Yining. Although the house was in chaos, Qin Yining's location was well protected. She had a handkerchief on her head. Because of her fever, the cold handkerchief had long become a hot one. Qin Huayuan personally soaked the handkerchief in cold water and placed it on her forehead. He sighed in melancholy. At this moment, Ji Yun had already tied her up. She entered the house and said, Marquis, this servant will serve young Mississippi, that's fine. When the sky brightens, I'll think of a way to get someone to come over. Qin Huayuan indeed had a lot of things to do. He still had to take care of the chaotic family. He still had to handle the funeral of the deceased, appease the emotions of his family members, and bribe the officials. Now that the sky was bright, the relatives and friends who came to offer their condolences would also come. He had to take care of all these matters alone. Although he really wanted to take care of Qin Yining, he really couldn't. Qin Huayuan patted Qin Yining's head again, sighed, and got up to leave. Overnight, the news of the imperial palace being set on fire and the destruction of the family Qin spread like wildfire. When Bing Tang, who was still helping out at Prince Ning's residence, heard the news, he was scared out of his wits. He couldn't wait to go with Prince Ning and hurriedly rushed back. Riding on his horse, Bing Tang turned the corner and saw the open door of the family Qin, the bloodstains on the ground, and the charred house behind the door. He was so scared that he almost fainted. Bing Tang immediately jumped off his horse and rushed into the residence with his medical box. Because he was in a hurry, he didn't see the road clearly and bumped into Master Zhong, who was also running into the residence. Head shopkeeper. Miss Bing Tang. Is the boss all right? I don't know. I just came back from the residence. What should we do? The two ran into the residence like headless flies and bumped into a servant with a white mourning ribbon around his waist. Only then did he ask about the situation in the residence. The mourning hall is in the main hall. When Bing Tang heard about the mourning hall, he was so scared that he grabbed the servant's arm, who exactly went there. The servant covered his face and cried, many people died. My brother is also dead. Third Madam, young mistress, Lord Zhou, a few ladies, and many sisters and nannies in the inner residence are all dead. Where's fourth young mistress? Master Zhong roared. The servant choked with sobs. Fourth young mistress was slashed with a knife. I don't know if she can survive. She's in the inner residence now. When Bing Tang and Master Zhong heard this, they immediately rushed towards the Chuihua gate. Mini Theater, Mu Jinghu. Chapter 2:15. Qin Yining had a long and heavy nightmare. In her dream, there were constant sounds of killing and the lingering smell of blood. There were also people chasing after her, shouting to kill her. She was originally very confident that she could escape, but when she took a step forward, she realized that she was just a child with short arms and legs. Very quickly, someone caught up with her. The moment the knife pierced her shoulder, she screamed in horror. Her body shook violently and she suddenly opened her eyes. Pain, her shoulder really hurt. Looking at the familiar light blue bed curtain with elegant magnolia embroidery, Qin Yining couldn't tell if she was awake or dreaming for a moment. Her last memory was that her family was trapped in a dead end. On one side was a fire, and on the other side was an assassin. She leaned on her father's arm and saw concubine Mother Lin commit suicide in despair because of sixth and seventh sister's death. Why did she return to her bedroom? Was everyone all right? "Miss, you're awake." Bing Tang, who was guarding the bed, said happily, "How do you feel?" Qin Yining opened her mouth, but her throat was dry and painful. She couldn't speak. Bing Tang hurriedly brought a small white porcelain bowl over and used a spoon to feed her half a bowl. The water in her mouth was salty and sweet, but her burning throat felt better. She then asked hoarsely, "How long did I sleep? What day is it now? What time is it?" In response to "Miss, you slept for a day and a night. It's just past 9. This servant received the news early this morning and came back. You had a bad fever at that time. Fortunately, your body is good. You're much better now." Qin Yining nodded and asked again, "Who else is in the family?" Bing Tang heard this and hesitated for a moment before saying carefully, "Don't ask so much. Old Madam, the Marquis, and Madam are all fine. Ji Yun said that when you fainted last night, reinforcements came. After that, everyone was fine. Even the injured 11th Master woke up and said that he was hungry. Ji Yun has a few minor injuries on her body. They're all superficial wounds. It's not a big deal. I've given her some medicine and let her sleep first. I remember that Ji Yun wasn't injured last night." Qin Yining turned his head weakly to look at Bing Tang. She thought that Ji Yun must have put in a lot of effort in the fight later. Bing Tang recalled what Ji Yun had told her and still had lingering fears. She helped Qin Yining up and placed a soft pillow behind her back. She took a bowl and continued to feed Qin Yining water. It is said that after the group of assassins left, another 3 experts quietly snuck in. At that time, the Marquis arranged for you to stay in the outer courtyard study for the time being. Only Ji Yun was there to guard you. Those 3 people's martial arts skills were too high. Ji Yun barely managed to fend them off. Fortunately, the people arranged by little Wang Yi arrived just in time to subdue those 3 assassins. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Peng Zhixi arranged for people. That's right. The person who came was a young chivalrous man. His martial arts skills are excellent, and his medical skills are probably above mine. The medicine he prescribed was very effective. He even captured the 3 assassins alive. What about the assassins? They have been handed over to the Marquis. I still don't know how the Marquis will deal with them. Bing Tang put down the bowl and tested the temperature of Qin Yining's forehead. She advised, "Miss, you injured your blood vessels and lost a lot of blood. You have injured your foundation. You should take care of your body now. You don't have to worry about other things. Everything outside is being discussed and handled by the Marquis, 2nd Master, and 3rd Master. I believe that with the Marquis's intelligence, he will definitely handle it well." Qin Yining closed her eyes tiredly and gently shook her head. "We can't just let this matter go. Even if we can't just let it go, you can't torture yourself anymore. If you don't take care of your body, how will you have the strength to care about other things?" Qin Yining suppressed her desire to immediately deal with this matter and said in a low voice, "Where is my medicine? Give it to me." When Bing Tang heard this, tears almost fell from her eyes. Qin Yining was simply the strongest woman she had ever met. After experiencing such a tragedy of family extermination and witnessing the death of her relatives with her own eyes, and the assassin kept shouting that he would spare her family if she was handed over. Concubine Lin resented her for the death of 6th young lady and 7th young lady, so she killed herself in front of her. The anger of having her family annihilated, the fear of being hunted down, the resentment of her family, and the fact that she had personally witnessed the death of someone close to her. It was said that Song Lan had even taken a stab to save her life before dying. If it were anyone else, they would probably have gone crazy. Even if they were fine, they would definitely feel sorry for themselves and wait to rely on others. However, Qin Yining had always been very rational and very tenacious. She never felt sorry for herself and always knew what she should do. If this kind of tenacity appeared in a matriarch of a household who had seen thousands of sales, it would be natural. However, she was only 15 years old. Bing Tang and Qin Yining were the same age. When the Tang family was annihilated, she was sent away half a year earlier. In the end, she only heard the news and didn't see the tragedy with her own eyes. Even so, every time she thought about it, she couldn't sleep at night. She was filled with hatred and fear and couldn't control her emotions at all. If she personally experienced everything that Qin Yining went through, Bing Tang felt that the grass on her grave would be 3 feet tall by now. Bing Tang sniffed and got up to bring a bowl of thin brown sugar corn porridge. She smiled and said, "Miss, eat something first. This is good for your body and it's good for your blood. Let's eat it first before you take the medicine." Qin Yining nodded and raised her weak hands to take the bowl. She trembled as she ate the warm porridge. She took the medicine that Bing Tang brought and drank it in one gulp. Then, she rinsed her mouth. The medicine relieved the pain and calmed the nerves. Qin Yining lay on the bed and soon felt tired. Before she fell asleep, she didn't forget to instruct Bing Tang, "Go tell my father and mother that I'm fine. Take care of their bodies." "Yes, Mississippi, don't worry." Master Zhong got the news and arranged for many people to come to our residence to help. Master Zhong didn't go back himself and listened to Master Ho's orders. "You just rest well and we can do more things and your body is better." Qin Yining's eyelids were getting heavier and heavier. After hearing Bing Tang's words, she finally felt at ease and fell into a deep sleep. When she woke up again, it was still night. At this time, Qin Yining felt that she had regained some energy. She forced herself to eat the brown sugar porridge and some mushy vegetables. She also took some medicine. After that, she didn't want to rest anymore. Bing Tang and Qiu Lu helped her down the stairs and towards the morning hall in the front yard. Although it was a summer night, Qin Yining was extremely afraid of the cold. When the wind blew, she felt extremely cold. She gritted her teeth and endured the cold all the way. She walked out of the Chuehua gate and turned into the main yard. She saw that the yard was draped in white and the morning banners hung high. What entered her sight was a sea of white. In the yard and in the hall, coffins were placed. The white paper lanterns flickered in the wind and the air was filled with the smell of burnt paper. When they saw this scene, Bing Tang and Qiu Lu felt their hair stand on end. When they thought about how these people had died in vain and how many of them were familiar with each other, they couldn't help but shed tears. Qin Yining walked past the open coffins. She only glanced at them a few times and then stopped looking at them. When she entered the morning hall, she saw Qin Yu, Qin Han, second old master, third old master, and Qin Huayuan all standing in front of the coffin. They were all dressed in plain clothes and were placing paper money in clay pots. "Father," Qin Yining called out. Qin Huayuan turned around and saw Qin Yining dressed in plain clothes with a pale face. "Why are you here?" "I'm here to light incense for everyone and kowtow." In front of Qin Yining lay third old madam, who was dressed in a sapphire blue shroud. She only took one look and her tears couldn't stop. She knelt in front of the coffin and kowtowed. In a low voice, she said, "It's my fault. I've let everyone down." When they heard Qin Yining's words, the room was filled with sobbing sounds. Third old master wiped his face and shook his head. "Sister E, you don't have to blame yourself. I've said it before. This incident wasn't anyone's fault. It's just that we were unlucky and happened to be in this chaotic world. Qin Yu's wife didn't escape this calamity either. They were a young married couple and were usually very loving. Although the Yao clan hadn't produced any children for many years and Qin Yu wasn't willing to take in a concubine for her sake, now that the Yao clan was gone, Qin Yu felt a part of his heart was empty. After hearing Third Old Master's words, she didn't say anything. She just blankly placed paper money in the clay pot. Qin Yining forced herself to stay awake. She didn't want to try to figure out what her family was thinking. Even if she was hated by her family, she deserved it because she had implicated them. She was now concerned about another matter. "Father, do you know where the assassin came from?" "Yes." Qin Huayuan's face was illuminated by the firelight. He slowly said, "The matter has been investigated clearly. The assassins were sent by the Zhou dynasty's emperor. First, it was because the Tian Jizi calculated your fate. Second, it was because they tried to assassinate the emperor. This time, there were more than 100 assassins from the Zhou dynasty. 2 days ago, they disguised themselves as merchants and entered the city. They were already targeted by the silver-masked secret agents and the warden's office of the 5 cities. Second Old Master, Third Old Master, Qin Yu, and Qin Han all put down the paper money in their hands and handed it to the servants who were keeping watch over the coffin. There were too many people here and it wasn't suitable for this topic. Everyone tacitly left the front hall and went to a reception pavilion in the courtyard next door to sit down. They also arranged for trustworthy people to stand guard outside. Qin Huayuan then said, "Those people's plan was very thorough. First, they sent people to our residence. Then, they arranged a large number of people in the imperial palace. That's not all. They even had a backup plan. This time, if young Master Mu hadn't come in time, Sister Yi might not be here now." Second Old Master and Third Old Master both sighed and shook their heads. Qin Yu asked, "Who is young Master Mu?" Qin Huayuan said, "Young Master Mu was sent by little Wang Yi to protect Sister Yi." Third Old Master said in surprise, "You're saying that little Wang Yi sent people to protect Sister Yi?" Qin Yining knew that right now, in front of his family, even half a sentence of concealment could easily cause misunderstandings. Therefore, he said bluntly, "Yes." When Pang Zhishi got the news that Emperor Zhou sent people to the capital to assassinate me, he immediately arranged for a Jianghu hero with excellent martial arts to help. However, he came too late and didn't catch up with the first batch of assassins. He only managed to capture the 3 assassins alive. Second Old Master nodded silently. Qin Han frowned and said, "It seems that Emperor Zhou and Pang Zhishi don't have the same opinion." Qin Han sneered, "In my opinion, no matter where it is, the emperor is always the same. They only care about the stability of their own position, and simply do not consider the suffering of the people." Fourth sister was only spread with that kind of baseless rumor, and the Zhou emperor was able to send people from afar to assassinate her. Moreover, he even killed so many people in our family. It is enough to show that he is also a person who acts arbitrarily and disregards human life. Qin Yining lowered his head. "In the end, I'm the one who harmed everyone." He took a deep breath and didn't wait for anyone to say anything to ease the situation. He turned to Qin Huayuan and asked, "Father, did you get anything out of those 3 assassins?" "They were tortured and spat out everything. However, the remaining assassins are still running away." That day, the people of the Qing-Tian alliance arrived in time and drove them out. Later, they lost track of them. The capital is now under martial law, so they can't get out. They can only break up and hide in the city. The warden's office in the 5 cities has been searching for them all day, but they haven't found anything yet. What if they're caught? Qin Yining asked, "Did the emperor say what to do with them?" Qin Huayuan slowly shook his head. "The emperor didn't say anything." "He didn't say anything." Qin Yining sneered and said meaningfully, if he didn't say anything, then this matter won't be easy to handle. Father, second uncle, third uncle, with the emperor's temperament, if Dezhou puts pressure on him, do you think he'll let these assassins go? That's very possible, Qin Han said bitterly. Think about what happened to the Duke Ding's mansion and the Sun family. The people of Dezhou didn't say anything, but the emperor already began to kill his loyal officials. If the emperor of Dezhou casually said, hand over these people and I'll spare your lives, wouldn't the emperor happily return them? Then wouldn't all our family members have died in vain? Qin Yu closed his eyes and tightly gripped the armchair with both hands. Third Master thought of his 11-year-old son and his considerate third wife and couldn't help but burst into tears. He was already an adult, but he was crying like a child who had lost his way. It's my incompetence. I couldn't protect your mother and younger brother. If the emperor still wants to let these assassins go, I'll fight the emperor to the death. Father. Qin Han grabbed Third Master's hand. Father, don't cry. It'll hurt your body. Mother's spirit in heaven wouldn't want to see you like this. Natural disasters and man-made disasters can't be avoided. It's not your fault. As people who are still alive, we have to seek justice for the people who died. We have to bear a heavier responsibility. Father, you must calm down. Third Master used his sleeve to wipe his face and forced himself to control his emotions. Qin Yining wiped his tears and said hoarsely, we definitely can't let the emperor hand over the assassins. It doesn't matter if it's the 3 that we caught or the group that escaped. If we can't catch them, then there'll be a huge hidden danger for us. If we catch them, but the emperor doesn't allow us to kill them, then I'll have to think of a way. It's not wise to directly disobey the emperor's orders. If we confront him directly, it'll be like striking a stone with an egg. We must think of a proper way to make these assassins pay with their lives. Qin Huaiyuan asked Qin Yining, Sister Yi, do you have a plan? Chapter 216. The family Qin had been persecuted to this extent, and everyone was filled with hatred. Hearing Qin Yining's words, everyone looked at her with burning eyes. Qin Huaiyuan said in a low voice, what idea have you come up with? Let's hear it. Right now, there are 4 things we need to do. First, let everyone know that the Emperor of Dezhou has ulterior motives. Because he learned of the Tian Jizi's criticism of me, and because he was afraid of father's talent, he ruthlessly killed the family Qin. Spread the news of the miserable state of the estate, and let everyone see how our family was persecuted by the Emperor of Zhou. Qin Huaiyuan nodded and said, Father also has the same plan. Third Master thought for a moment, then nodded and said, it's good to spread the news. If we don't say anything, who knows when His Majesty will suppress this matter. At that time, we'll suffer for nothing. Third uncle is right. I also think so. Qin Yining pondered and said, the more guilty the emperor is, the more he doesn't want people to talk about him. Therefore, if this matter is publicized, the emperor will have to consider his reputation in order to stop people from gossiping if there is any accident. Moreover, with father's reputation, this matter will inevitably arouse the public's anger. At that time, it might even have a beneficial effect on the war. Second Master, Qin Han, and Qin Yu all nodded. Second, let everyone know that on the day of the funeral, I will kill the 3 assassins by 1,000 cuts in front of the graves of the victims. Death by 1,000 cuts. Second Master was stunned. He stood up and paced back and forth a few times. He said with some worry, I'm afraid this matter isn't appropriate. After all, the 3 of them haven't been brought to court. If we secretly interrogate them, it'll be enough to cause people to criticize us. If we use private punishment to kill them by 1,000 cuts, it'll be against the law. It'll be easy for people to talk behind our backs. This is a small matter, but I'm afraid that the Chow family will use this to persecute your father again. Qin Han also said, that's right. The matter with the Ministry of Revenue hasn't been settled yet. If we add another crime, wouldn't the Chow family be even more emboldened? What second uncle and second brother said makes sense, but the law is nothing more than human feelings. Our family is in such a miserable state. Not to mention putting the three of them to death by 1,000 cuts, even if we cook them and eat them, the people who know the truth will only clap their hands and celebrate. Besides, do you think our family is such a pushover? They've already killed their way to our doorstep, and we don't even dare to take revenge after catching the assassin. Wouldn't it be a joke if he said it out loud? Diane and Dezhou are already at war, and there's no longer a relationship between us and them. It's time for us to show our attitude. His Majesty isn't tough enough, but there should be someone tough in the court. Qin Han suddenly understood. Second Old Master nodded. Qin Huayuan said, although this move is a bit dangerous, it's still a good plan. Once the news spreads, if their accomplices want to rescue them, they'll naturally rush over. We only need to set up an ambush. If they don't, killing those three can be considered a temporary consolation for their souls in heaven. That's right. Qin Yining nodded, his eyes bright as he said, moreover, Dezhou's emperor has ordered them to assassinate me. If they can't complete the mission, they'll probably be punished by the emperor. On the day of the funeral, I'll reveal a flaw. I don't believe that they'll be completely indifferent. That won't do. That's too dangerous. Qin Yu frowned and said, Fourth sister, Big Brother knows that you're anxious to take revenge for your family, and I'm afraid that if we don't make arrangements as soon as possible, there will be more problems. However, you're still injured, and it wasn't easy for our family to be stable for the time being. We can't afford to lose anyone else. Once the assassin is lured over, what if something happens to you? Qin Yu really wanted to take revenge for his wife. However, he was even more unwilling to lose his family. Qin Yining smiled gratefully at Qin Yu. He sighed and said, how can one gain a huzi without entering the tiger's den? Moreover, as long as the plan is meticulous, it won't be that dangerous. Qin Huayuan had already thought of some things as soon as Qin Yining said those words. As for this matter, I'll discuss it with that person later. I'll think of a way to borrow the expert she's taken in. Qin Yining looked at Qin Huayuan and nodded with a smile. Others didn't know who Qin Huayuan was talking about, but Qin Yining knew. Qin Huayuan planned to discuss with Chao Yuqing about borrowing the silver-masked spy. Qin Yining had also planned to do so from the beginning. All right, then I'll have to trouble you, father. As for young Master Mu, I'll personally ask him, as well as the Qing Tian Alliance. Qing Tian Alliance. Qin Han's eyes widened in surprise. Qin Yining smiled and said, I know some people in the Qing Tian Alliance. If we arrange it properly, they can be of help to us. But the Qing Tian Alliance are traitors. Qin Han muttered. Traitors. Qin Yining couldn't help but laugh and said, heaven and earth are not benevolent. We've already come to this point, so why bother with these things? If it weren't for the traitors that second brother mentioned, who rushed in and scared the assassins away, we wouldn't be here right now. Only then did Qin Han and Qin Yu know that the group of people who rushed into the inner residence that day were members of the Qing Tian Alliance. Second Master and Third Master had already guessed this. Therefore, they weren't too surprised when they heard the answer from Qin Yining. Qin Yining explained the plan to Qin Huayuan in detail in a low voice. They all talked at once and expressed their own opinions. In the end, Qin Huayuan chose the most appropriate method. Seeing that Qin Yining's complexion wasn't good, Qin Huayuan said, it's getting late. Let's all go and rest. Once Sister Yi's body is better, we can start the next step. Okay. Qin Yining stood up. Her vision was a bit dark. She closed her eyes and calmed herself down. Only then did she feel a bit better. After returning to the Shuoran study, Qin Yining took some medicine and fell asleep. On the other hand, Qin Huayuan invited Chao Yuqing to the back garden to discuss something in a low voice. The discussion lasted for an hour before it ended. In the military camp outside Xihua City, Peng Shao had been anxious for several days. Finally, his subordinate, Jinghu Wei, had arrived. Jinghu Wei was his trusted aide. Not only were they all highly skilled in martial arts, but they were also loyal and devoted to him. Because the two countries were at war, the capital was under martial law. Not to mention ordinary spies, even Jinghu Wei had a hard time bringing news back. Peng Shao hadn't been in the mood to train these past 2 days. He was so anxious that he felt like grass was about to grow in his heart. Now that he saw the person who had replied, his heart calmed down a bit. He led the person out of the large tent to an open space outside. After making sure that there was no one around to hide and eavesdrop, he asked in a low voice, "Quickly speak. How is the situation in the capital? Did His Majesty arrange for people to enter the city?" Back to Wang Yi. His Majesty arranged for 100 death warriors to disguise themselves as merchants and enter the capital in batches. A few days ago, those people ransacked the Dayan Marquis of Anping's estate. This subordinate went to the Marquis of Anping's estate to take a look. There were indeed many deaths in the estate. More than half of the servants were gone. Many of the master's capable maidservants lost their lives. In addition, the Marquis of Anping's estate's third madam, eldest young mistress, sixth young mistress, and seventh young mistress were also. I don't want to know about these people. Just tell me if fourth young mistress is all right. Peng Shao stood with his hands behind his back. His hands behind his back were tightly clenched into fists. Although his expression was normal, the aura around him was cold. It was like an unsheathed sharp blade that was eager to drink blood. It made people feel intimidated just by looking at it. This was the first time that Jinghu Wei had seen Wang Yi this angry. He didn't dare to say more and only said, "Fourth young mistress was cut by a knife and lost too much blood. I'm afraid it will harm her foundation." When this subordinate came out, I heard that fourth young mistress was still unconscious. What did you say? Peng Zhao's voice was still not loud, but the pressure hidden in his words seemed to be able to materialize. The pressure made Jinghu Wei kneel on one knee. "Wang Yi, please calm down." Peng Zhao took a few deep breaths and told himself that he must calm down. But when he thought of Emperor Zhou's insistence on killing Qin Yining and using the excuse that she was a protective talisman that the Tian Jizi calculated to protect the Dayan dynasty, Peng Zhao was so angry that his teeth itched. That day, Emperor Zhou ordered the eunuch to send a decree, ordering him to assassinate the legitimate daughter of the Dayan Marquis of Anping. He wasn't willing to listen. The eunuch was ordered to reason with him, saying that he didn't know what was important and that he dared to disobey the decree. This was already the second time that he had disobeyed the emperor's decree in Xihua City. Peng Zhao had always been flexible. If it was in the past, even if the chamberlain was arrogant and long-winded, he would not show too much of his attitude. Everyone just had to maintain the dignity between each other and go about their own business. But the eunuch's words were all about Qin Yining's life. He couldn't even bear to touch such a precious person. How could he tolerate others harming her? So Peng Zhao had a big argument with the eunuch and even beat him up. The eunuch left crying. He thought that when he returned, he would add oil and vinegar to the emperor's story and make up bad things about him. But when it came to Qin Yining, Peng Zhao found that his rationality had long disappeared. All that was left were his instincts. It was also on the day that the eunuch was beaten up and left in a hurry that Peng Zhao hurriedly sent a messenger pigeon to urge Mu Jinghu to quickly go to the capital to protect Qin Yining. If possible, Peng Zhao wished that he could go. But a few days ago, he had already left the military camp once to save money. Now that the war was tense, as the commander-in-chief, leaving without permission was a big taboo in the military. So he could only grit his teeth and suppress the uneasiness in his heart. Outside the palace, he prayed for the safety of his family Qin and secretly prayed that Mu Jinghu would be able to make it in time. But Qin Yining was still injured. Pang Xiao closed his eyes and clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles turned white. When had Jinghu Wei ever seen Pang Xiao reveal such emotions? Wang Yi had always been unfathomable. The biggest taboo was to let others see through his emotions. But now, Wang Yi actually didn't care about this. This king understands. Pang Xiao faintly exhaled after a long while. His voice was still as usual, you take a few people with you. You will follow and protect Qin Si in secret. Jinghu Wei was stunned. He never thought that such a well-trained talent like him would be assigned to protect a woman in the boudoir. Is there a problem? Pang Xiao raised his eyebrows. No, this subordinate obeys. This subordinate will go and arrange it. Jinghu Wei bowed and hurriedly retreated. Pang Xiao stood in the open space with his hands behind his back. He raised his head and looked at the new moon. Slowly, he gritted his teeth and said, really good. To read a novel, please visit. Chapter 217. The next day, Qin Yining got up and invited Mu Jinghu to the Shuoran study for a chat. Mu Jinghu had already changed into a light blue cotton robe. His hair was combed neatly with a net handkerchief, and he looked like an ordinary scholar. Qin Yining had ordered Ji Yun to send him these clothes and forced him to wear them. Even so, he could not bear to throw away the tattered clothes that he wore when he arrived. He still kept them at the bottom of his trunk. Young Master Mu, please take a seat. Qin Yining met him in the study on the first floor of the Shuoran study. Mu Jinghu sat down on a round back chair and curiously sized up Qin Yining with his head tilted. Qin Yining thought that this young master was indeed as Ji Yun had said in private. He really was somewhat ignorant of the ways of the world. What kind of man would stare at a woman like that? However, Mu Jinghu's gaze was very clean. Qin Yining could tell that he was purely curious and did not have any other intentions. This made him unable to feel any disgust towards him. Qin Yining smiled and said, did little Wang Yi send you here? When Mu Jinghu heard this, he was somewhat unhappy and said, how can that fox be qualified to send me to do things? That fox? Why did these words sound so full of resentment? Thinking of Pang Xiao's cunning and changeable personality, and then looking at this somewhat foolish and somewhat naive young master in front of him, Qin Yining felt that he had already found the truth. This young master might have been ruthlessly fooled by Pang Xiao before. Young master, please forgive me for offending you. Then you were sent here by Pang Zhishi. Mu Jinghu nodded and said, I lost a bet in the past and owed him. All these years, he has not asked me to return the debt. I thought that he had forgotten about it. A few days ago, he suddenly came looking for me and asked me to protect his future wife. As he spoke, he looked at Qin Yining and said, you really took things too hard. Why did you agree to marry that fox? Qin Yining, could she say that she was speechless? She herself did not know how she had developed such a relationship with Pang Xiao step by step. In that case, it seemed that she had really accidentally fallen into Pang Xiao's trap. Now, even if she wanted to withdraw, she could not bear to do so. Qin Yining coughed and said somewhat awkwardly, I am very grateful to be protected by a hero with such great martial arts skills like young Master Mu. You've never seen me fight before. You were still unconscious that day. How do you know that my martial arts are strong? Qin Yining had gradually understood Mu Jinghu's character and knew that he was not being sarcastic or had any other meaning. Instead, it was because of his straightforward character that he asked whenever he had a question. Qin Yining smiled and said, because Ji Yun saw a young master's ability. Although I do not understand these things, Ji Yun said that you subdued those 3 people in just a few moves. Mu Jinghu nodded and said seriously, my martial arts skills are indeed very good. That fox told me to protect you until he conquered your country's capital. Once he conquered Dian, we will be even. So I'm telling you in advance, don't think that I can protect you for the rest of your life. How could a normal person boast in front of others? How could he directly say something like, conquer Dian? It seemed that this young master was already ignorant to a certain extent. He was probably someone who was used to living alone and did not need to interact with others. He was also a straightforward and honest person. Qin Yining liked to interact with such people. Because when he spoke to them, he did not need to consider the subtlety of his words and did not need to guess the deeper meaning of the other party's words. He only needed to listen to the literal meaning and be straightforward with him. Qin Yining said seriously, yes, I understand what young master is saying. But during this period of time, may I ask young master to protect my family as well? After thinking for a while, Qin Yining added, my family has gone through this ordeal and there are not many left. Mu Jinghu looked at Qin Yining's pale face and thought that his family Qin was the fox's father-in-law's family. He nodded and said, all right, I am friends with that fox. I will protect you while I am at it. But again, I won't stay for long. I'll return once the gates of your capital city are breached. I still have a lot of things to do in the mountains. Ji Yun, who was serving at the side, could not help but frown when she heard this. If someone had said such things about the Dezhou dynasty in front of her, she would have been angry. She would not be as good-natured as Qin Yining. Qin Yining was not angry at all. She nodded and said, all right, young master is straightforward and will definitely keep his promises. Since that is the case, I will have to trouble young master for the next few days. Although young master came as promised, I would still like to thank young master solemnly. Qin Yining stood up and bowed to Mu Jinghu. Mu Jinghu thought to himself that the fox's wife was much more particular than the fox. He smiled and returned the bow. Although Qin Yining was very weak due to excessive blood loss, she still went to the mourning hall every day to burn incense for her deceased relatives. Every time she saw such a scene, she would cry sadly. After a few days, she appeared more and more haggard. Her eyes were even bruised. As their plan unfolded, the news that the family Qin in the capital was almost exterminated by assassins arranged by the emperor of the Zhou dynasty had already spread to everyone. There was an endless stream of people who came to offer their condolences. Among them were friends of the family Qin, colleagues in the court, and people who were not familiar with Qin Huaiyuan but admired the righteousness of the people. 2 days later, the news of the 3 assassins being dismembered on the day of the Qin family's funeral was purposely exaggerated and once again spread throughout the city. As a result, the emperor and Chao Guizhang, who had been silent for many days, were finally alarmed. Your Majesty, this subject believes that Qin Meng was too reckless in this matter and lost his usual steadiness. If the 3 assassins were dismembered, I'm afraid that Dezhou would have a strong desire for revenge. Now that the Tiger Army is entrenched in Xihua City, if they were angered, their attacks would be even fiercer. Chao Guizhang furrowed his brows and bowed. The emperor paced back and forth a few times with his hands behind his back. He angrily flung his sleeves and said, that Qin Meng is really muddle-headed. I didn't expect him to be so reckless. It's indeed lamentable that so many people in his family were killed, but he can't completely disregard the current state of the country. We're in a hurry to contact the Taden, but not only did he not help to stall for time, he even dared to do such a thing to anger the people of Dezhou. He simply doesn't care about the rise and fall of the country. To think that I still thought of him as a loyal subject. Your Majesty, please calm down. Chao Guozhang said worriedly, at this point, only your majesty can persuade Qin Meng to give up on this idea. The emperor nodded but did not issue an edict. He was somewhat against the idea of going to the family Qin. After all, such a thing happened in the family Qin. Who could be sure that there weren't assassins there? If he rashly went there and was injured by the assassins, what would he do? Therefore, after thinking for a moment, the emperor ordered, "Summon Qin Huaiyuan to the palace." Chao Guozhang thought for a moment and understood the emperor's concerns. He said, "This subject is willing to go there personally. This way, I can persuade Qin Meng at the appropriate time." "That's good." The emperor nodded and said, "Then you can go immediately." "As you wish." Chao Guozhang bowed and retreated. When there was no one else in the imperial study, the emperor said to the person behind him, "Beloved Minister Gu. This subject is here." An old man with white hair and a beard walked out from the inner room and bowed to the emperor. This person was the emperor's tutor, Gu Shixiang, who had been in politics for many years. Before he was in politics, he had been the crown prince's tutor. After he was in politics, Chao Guozhang became the tutor. Because of this relationship, the emperor had great trust in Gu Shixiang. Although the Gu family wasn't very prosperous these years, they were still one of the 8 wealthiest families in the capital. "Beloved Minister Gu, I ordered you to find some skilled craftsmen. Have you found any?" "Replying to your majesty, I've found all the people and have begun work. It's just that. Your majesty, this old subject believes that with the chaos of war, it would be better for the wealth your majesty has obtained in recent days to be invested in the war." When Gu Shixiang spoke, his old body trembled slightly. The emperor frowned and said, "This wealth is what I have obtained in a normal manner. It is also the goodwill of the people and merchants of the world towards me. Moreover, I have already decided on how to deal with this large amount of gold and silver. Beloved Minister Gu, just do your part. Or does beloved Minister Gu wish to go against my wishes?" Recently, the emperor had added a few more types of taxes and ruthlessly exploited the merchants of the world. He had also scraped off a few layers of oil from the common people. Now, he held a large amount of gold and silver in his hands. He had given this matter to his trusted aides, so not many people knew about it. Seeing the emperor's insistence, Gu Shixiang cleverly bowed and said, "This subject doesn't dare. This subject was wrong just now. As the ruler of the country, your majesty has the right to decide where this money will go. No one else has the right to interfere." The emperor stroked his beard with satisfaction. After speaking with Gu Shixiang for a while, he ordered his trusted aide to secretly send Gu Shixiang away. At this time, Qin Huaiyuan had also followed Chao Guozhang into the palace. Qin Huaiyuan had always known when to advance and when to retreat. Otherwise, his outstanding talent alone wouldn't have been enough for the emperor to trust him for so many years. Thus, when the emperor summoned Qin Huaiyuan into the palace today, Chao Guozhang had already spoken with Qin Huaiyuan. In addition to his own prestige, he was very confident that Qin Huaiyuan would listen to his arrangements. Who would have thought that Qin Huaiyuan would enter the imperial study, kneel down, kowtow, and complain tearfully, describing the miserable state of the family Qin. "No matter what your majesty orders this subject doesn't dare to disobey. However, this group of assassins is too savage. The capital is under the sun of heaven's feet. Under your majesty's eyes, the assassins from Dezhou dared to run amok. Not only did they arrange for a large group of assassins to come, but they also robbed this subject's home. This is clearly not putting your majesty's prestige in their eyes. Your majesty's wealth extends far and wide, and your prestige shakes the world. Now that Dezhou and Dian are at war, if you let these 3 people off lightly, wouldn't it be telling the world that your majesty is afraid of Dezhou? This subject is considering your Majesty's prestige and has decided to execute these 3 people. Please, your Majesty. Hearing this, the Emperor wavered. Although he was very afraid of angering the people of Dezhou in exchange for an even more ferocious attack, he still had to consider his own dignity. The news that the family Qin was going to execute the assassins by 1,000 cuts had already spread. If he brazenly obstructed them, he was afraid that he would be criticized behind his back. However, if he really allowed the family Qin to execute these 3 people, the Emperor was still a bit afraid. Thinking of this, the Emperor thought of a compromise. He smiled as he helped Qin Huaiyuan up and said, "Beloved official Qin, we know about your family's situation and can understand. However, execution by 1,000 cuts is too bloody and cruel. You can capture these 3 people and flog them in front of their graves on the day of the funeral as a warning to others. As for execution by 1,000 cuts, we think we should avoid it."